Welcome to Universe Unveiled, the podcast where we explore the mysteries that challenge our understanding of history and the universe. I'm Jacqueline.
And I'm Sarah. Today we have a historical occasion, our first official Universe Unveiled cruise session. Joining us today is a carefully selected panel of experts and big thinkers. We're excited to put our heads together with them and see what we can all learn from each other.
Okay, so first we'll go around and have everyone introduce themselves. Starting with Ricardo, if you would, tell the people who you are, what you're into, and where they can find you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to hear the presentations that are going to be today. We are in excellent company for sure. So my name is Ricardo Calvari. You can find me at X, where as it is in the screen, at Ricardo Calvari 1. And I recommend you go and look into institutefornaturalphilosophy.org, where you can see our magazine and you can participate. You'll find sections there where you can contact us. So thank you for having me again.
Tyrone?
All right. How's everybody doing today? Everything that you want to know about me can be found on my website, rebirthoftheword.com. You can also buy my book, Journey Through the Origins of History, on Amazon. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Nick?
Hey, thank you very much for having me on. Nick from the Occult Rejects, basically a podcast that touches on magic, occultism, and conspiracies. You can find us on BitChute, Rumble, YouTube, and all major podcasts. And we also have occultresearchinstitute.org. If you're into long form reading, definitely tons of stuff on there you can check out. Thank you.
Perfect. David?
Hey, I'm Dave from Mike and Dave's Multiverse. I'm the Dave in the Mike and Dave's. We have a YouTube channel. We interview interesting people about stuff we like and are interested in, mostly ancient history, UAP, UFO stuff, science, that kind of thing. We're on YouTube, Rumble, Spotify is where you can find the podcast. We do a live stream across 5 platforms every Thursday. Sometimes we have guests, sometimes we don't. Usually just about, again, ancient history, space, science, that kind of thing. So check us out at Mike and Dave's Multiverse.
Awesome. And last but not least, Shaman.
Hi, guys. Jason Huffman, known as Shaman. So describe me simply. I guess I'm a finder of things, within and without, things spiritual and things material. You guys can find me on X. You know that. That's where I found you all. Shaman711 is the screen name on platforms. So Rumble and X. Other than that, I'm really, really thrilled and happy to be here. Looking forward to these presentations today.
Awesome.
Perfect. Today we have 2 different presentations to go over. We have Tyrone and Dave. So Tyrone, I'm going to hand it over to you if you want to get started on that.
Lost audio on Tyrone.
I think he's muted.
There we go.
I forgot to say thank you for having me as well.
Well, thanks for coming, Dave.
Now I was trying to bring up this thing. Can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
All right. So, yeah, there we go. Just making sure I'm on the right screen. All right. So everybody knows who the Anunnaki are. Everybody. I mean, no matter what you've studied, you've heard of the Anunnaki, which is they are a mysterious group of individuals. And this all started because how I grew up. I grew up in the Catholic Church, and I was told there was only one God. But then I would go to school and meet different people from different parts of the world, and they would tell me about their gods, and it wouldn't be the same one as I had, and so on and so forth. So I wanted to learn more about it, and I just couldn't understand why God would, only have one group of people. Then, of course, when I read the Bible, He does have a chosen people, and most people know that. And what's interesting is that when you hear about the Elohim, a lot of people equate them to them being many gods. Well, the Sumerians are considered the first civilization because of their writing system. That's not an argument. That's about the roundabout time that most people agree with. And the Sumerians actually called them the Anuna. So with one of my favorite sources that has anything to do with the Sumerians and Anuna / the Anunnaki is the Literature of Ancient Sumer, which is the book on the right-hand side, and then the electronic text corpus of Sumerian literature on the left side. Now, there's also individuals like Samuel Noah Kramer, Jacobson, Paterio, Jeremy Black, and Heiser. And then you have Andrew George, George Smith, and Irving Finkel even. But most people who know about the Anunnaki or / Anuna, they they know Zachariah Sitchin more than they know about Samuel Noah Kramer, which is kind of funny to me because of the simple fact that Samuel Noah Kramer is actually like the go-to guy for this. Like he's respected a lot. Then Michael S. Heiser, which is funny to me, is let me see. He actually has a website called sitchiniswrong.com. So he was so pissed that Zachariah Sitchin was lying about the Anunnaki / Anuna that he made a website literally called sitchiniswrong.com. So that tripped me out. But this is the thing. Even though that tripped me out and made me laugh, he actually was able to provide sources on why he said he was wrong. So like, I'm a source kind of a person. Anybody that knows me, I like to see where you learned it from. I'm not saying you're right or wrong. I just want to know where you learned it from. And Dr. Michael S. Heiser said everybody has the opportunity to read these texts for themselves and have the opportunity to also, learn what is actually said, right? So the Cuneiform Digital Library Collection, Cuneiform Digital Library Initiative, which is called the CDLI Collection, is a website you can go to where you can actually see the tablets for yourself. So you can see what the tablets look like. They have multiple pictures and so on and so forth. So there's no denying that nobody can go take their due diligence and their time, learn the language, and then share it for themselves, right? So there's that's just up to the person that is wanting to know the language for themselves to prove somebody wrong. Like I said, I'm not trying to prove anybody wrong. I just want to know what the tablet says that, so that way I can see the description for myself, because they have descriptions on there and stuff like that. Now, what is interesting is the reason why those two sources, or all those sources that I showed you so far, are important is because according to the Literature of Ancient Sumer, which is the book, these translations of Sumerian literature constitute the most comprehensive collection ever published of the world's earliest literature. The composition in this book were mainly inscribed on clay tablets dating to the 18th century BC, which is 1800 to 1701 BC. That's what it says on the back of the book. I took that straight from the back of the book. And then you have the electronic text corpus of Sumerian literature, which is literally the online version of the book. So you can get the book version, or you can get read the free online version that everybody's having the opportunity to go online and do it. And they say anywhere, it says, and date to the late 3rd and early 2nd millennia BCE. So that's actually from their website. Let me see. When you go right here, it tells you in that little box right there on the introduction on the left-hand side. So it gives you, their sources. Now, like I said, the Sumerian writing system known as cuneiform was originally developed around 3200 BC. I actually took a class, and they said that's because of the pictographic script, and most of it was to for records for like trading and using grain rations and livestock and tax receipts and stuff like that. So it was more for the idea that it was for trading, basically agricultural needs. And then it later on became into the more, advanced writing system that they have with the cuneiform. But what the Akkadians did is they had all that plus the myths and stories of their gods and stuff like that. Sumerians really didn't have any stories like that. They had, their pictographic script that would be depicted as their god or whatnot, but they didn't have it like a story that went with it. It's interesting because the Sumerian word for the Sumerian language is imeger, which probably means normal language. So they have names what they call these this language. They have a word for it and stuff like that, and it's in the electronic text corpus of Sumerian literature. And but the problem is that everybody has their different translations. That's why you have different translations of what is exampled as the Epic of Gilgamesh. A lot of people don't really understand that or know that, but you can definitely read the many different versions, and they say that they have different versions of it, and it gets more interesting as you learn about it also. But the Sumerians are usually known as the black-headed people, so everybody's wondering, where did these people come from, blah 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 blah. And what I've learned is that the black-headed people, often meaning all humans, mankind, in some cases I've learned that they were known as brothers. So that gives me the idea of the Masons, because the Masons were known as brothers to each other sometimes too. And most people know that the Sumerians were a polytheistic religion, worshiping many different gods of the Anuna/Anunnaki. And like I said, it wasn't until the Akkadians time frame, or I've said in the past, that the Akkadians are the ones that actually called them the Anunnaki. The Sumerians called them the Anuna. And and there's not really too much information in the Sumerian. And this is where it gets confusing. So the Sumerian civilization happened around 3200 BC. Okay, and then the Akkadians came around 2300 some BC, and they took over when Sargon of Akkad came. So the language itself lasted for a long time. I've read all the way up to 1 AD in some cases. And some people even say that it still lives today because people are still writing in that language today, but that's only a select few. But the Anunnaki were a group of individuals who were consisting to, from what I've read, anywhere from like 7 to 12, and then even went past 12. Sometimes it was 50, sometimes it was 60. It was just different amounts, but most people say that there's 7 to 12 main ones. And when I put this little sign that's right here, that's the Anuna, that's an Anu sign, also known as An. And in this sign is supposed to be the sign of the suns for some people who say that. So some people say that's supposed to be their depiction of a sun. Some people say different things. But these Anuna gods were just basically the same gods that we know as what the God in the Bible is, the different personalities. That's the Elohim and so on and so forth. And each Sumerian city-state had a worship specific gods. That's why, like I said here with Elohim, some people, they found, stories in these areas, Yoruk, Nippur, and Eridu and stuff like that. And each one of those places had their own god that they worshiped and prayed to. Let's see. Yeah, the Nuna are credited for the creation of the universe and everything within it. So every time somebody says, well, how did these guys come to be? How did these stories about guys come to be, and so on and so forth? It's just a way of people just telling their stories for entertainment, like how we watch TV today or listen to podcasts and stuff like that. It's their entertainment. And they're trying to make sense of the world just like we are, but they're doing it in the most easiest, entertaining way for themselves. I know a lot of people would say that the Sumerians talk about how the Anuna/Anunnaki comes from a planet Nibiru, where there isn't no text that says that. There's not 10 text that says that they came from Nibiru. But there are Babylonian texts that talk about how Jupiter could be Nibiru, and so on and so forth, just depending on what text that you read. But it's Babylonian. It's not the Sumerians. And the Enuma Elish is
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to ask one too.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, just directly on what you said. I'm sorry to interrupt, but so I'm curious, who started inserting this idea of the planet Nibiru? Do you know?
Section.
Yep, exactly. That comes from Sitchin. His book, the
12th planet.
The 12th Planet. Yep. He has a series called The Earth Chronicles that has his 7 important books that gives the most reasons why, who, and what the Anuna/Anunnaki are. But he is the guy that says they came from planet Nibiru. Now this is the thing. I can't say for a fact if he's lying or not, But what I can say is that he hasn't been able to provide. He hasn't been able to provide, a source for his for what he claimed.
That's what I was getting at, and thank you.
Yeah.
You answered it perfectly. Is, so many people seem to take just that facet, right, of this story or whatever it is so seriously. I think it's important to point out, as you were, that so much of this doesn't come from what we know of as sources.
Well, Jason, you have to take in consideration that when these Sitchin books came out, we are right in the heated moment of space exploration, right? So we are starting to use these powerful rockets to reach space and even the moon. And he wrote a text saying that these people, the Anunnaki, had the same technology, because he described the problem. Tyrone said he doesn't provide sources. Well, he provides exactly the same sources as the others. The only thing is he interpreted the tablets as he pleased. So the problem is when we start seeing people that are really academics and they are really understanding the language starting translating it, and we compare what the translations of Sitchin were, where the man was on acid.
Right.
Because his translations were like a novel. It make it amazing, right? It's I think it's 36 books, Tyrone, total. I have the full collection, but I think it's a lot of them.
Wow.
That he wrote.
Mm-hmm.
I think
It's an
there
epic
are
story.
Yeah, I think there are 12 or 14 or something like the main ones, and then he explored that around. The problem is his translations are not accurate. And he only before he was about to die, just a few months before, he did a statement saying that all he did was invent and he wanted to create an epic story. But that was never become public, and it's hard to find. So, sorry, Tyrone, I'm taking your space. Go ahead.
No. That's exactly right. See, this is the thing. I got into this, like I said, because of my religious background, and Sitchin wrote these books his first book in 1976. That was before I was born. So, I had an idea, either it was a God that, they tell me in the church, or it's an alien extraterrestrial. But what is an alien extraterrestrial? Well, an extraterrestrial is anything outside of Earth's atmosphere, right? I got that. Okay, cool. I'm cool with that. That means God is not from this planet, meaning he's outside of our Earth's atmosphere, which means he's an extraterrestrial. So the argument is what did he look like and why did he create us? That's how I'm thinking as I'm getting older and older and going through my journey. Nice. So it could be something like this, seriously, or it could be, like I said, what's written in the Bible, because God is not from planet Earth, right? He created Earth, right? He created the universe. So he had to come from somewhere else. And that's why
extra universe
outside of time and space as we know it is just would be my throw in there. That's where it comes from. But what you describe is man, it's perfect. It is a step in this process, right, of searching that we're all engaged in. And whether you're trying to find it and think of it from the material, right, which is kind of what you're talking about here, finding this that is defined as from outside of this sphere, right, that we live in. Either way, whether you're doing it there or more along the spiritual lines, of seeking this entity that does not have flesh and blood, that is outside of time. Either way are perfectly valid and wonderful parts of the process. So I'm sorry to interrupt.
Tyrone, what do you think about the fact that
I'm really enjoying this, man? Thank you.
3200 BC, right? So we know that the Burker crater was around from 4000 BC to 3600 BC, which give them either 800 years or 600 years to rebuild civilization. We're talking about a highly animistic culture. So they have these names for these forces of nature, for the elements, and they know that something happened that covered the land with water. We had weeks of raining, boiling water. We have then weeks of water flooding the land. We have the movement of the seas, eradicating everything and forcing them to rebuild. I think it's easy to understand why they create this myths with all these gods fighting among each other, destroying the world and recreating man, and the fact that they have powers that do that. I think it's easy to understand how they, with our own language and in their own culture, describe this myths. That's the name for that.
Well, you're tapping on what I think,
and that's what I'm saying is that I just wanted sources for what it says. Like, where are people getting this from? Like I want to read the story completely for myself. I don't want to, you to give me the snippet, because of fair use, right? You can only give me a snippet because of fair use. And, and, like I said, one of my favorite sources is the literature of ancient Sumer. That's the book version of the electronic text corpus of Sumerian literature. But what's so interesting about the Anuna / the Anunnaki is that when you go to the back of the book, the Igigi is a collective name for the great gods. Okay. And then when you look at what Anuna stand for, it says a collective name for the gods. But most people know that the Igigi were the ones that were toiling the earth. So now my question is, why were the great gods toiling the earth for the regular gods? Right? Because Anuna weren't considered the great gods. The Igigi or Ijijai, I mean, I've heard it said so many different ways. They are, it's a collective name for the great gods. So these are great gods. Okay. So who were really the Anuna, the Anunnaki? And, when you read Sitchin, he has many different versions, which I'll get into about what an Anunnaki meant. But it mainly meant princely offspring or princely seed. It didn't mean something like those who came from earth,
Yes.
heaven to earth or something like that. Like and I'll get into that in a second because that's important. But
Would you say that the Gigi are the counterpart of the odd god in Egyptian mythology? Because they are also not named. We don't know vaguely about them.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. I don't know because I grew up learning that the Anuna were the most important gods. But then I pick up that book and learn about
The
the
Gigi.
electronic text code. Yeah, and I find out that they're the great gods. So now it just tells me so there are gods that were greater than the Anunnaki, and why were they toiling this earth? You know what I mean?
And what does it mean to toil the earth to you?
Well, to me, I think it had to do with agricultural needs.
Could it
Because
be
the
they were
gods
building it?
could be. Like, are you getting into like terraforming or something?
Maybe, because what does the word mean to them, not to us?
Yeah, and that's what
Where
I'm
else do we
asking.
hear the word toil? We hear the word men toil in the Bible, right?
Yeah,
We're cast out of the garden to toil, upon the earth.
yeah, exactly. And that's
So
what I'm
were these
saying.
Gigi, if they were all human beings, let's just, I think like Hancock takes that line and Ricardo's kind of tapping on that line. If these were perhaps different variants of different advancement levels of human beings, that turns this into an interesting story.
Yeah, yeah. It's just to me, it's just you learn something different every time you pick up, a version
Yeah,
of
I
who
see that.
the Anuna, and that's why I gave, the earlier when I said, or was it the two different dates that they give a roundabout for the sources? These are the same exact sources. So what's in ETCSL is in the Sumerian, is in that book. It's literally in the book. It's just you can have a hard copy of it, but they give two different dates on what these, what they put in there. But for some reason, it's the same stuff. So it just makes you think, what you know why are they moving the goalposts to create a better narrative or whatever?
They're
What
such
makes them
recent
change?
dates, aren't they? Aren't those dates, when we talk like Göbekli Tepe, right? That's whatever, 9,000 BC. Seeing 2,000 and 1,000 BC as sources for stories supposedly about the origins or the ancient ones, that just seems recent when I
Yeah,
see it.
and that's why, and I'm glad you brought that up because on Göbekli Tepe on the pillars they have what are known as pictographs. Well, language started
Yes.
off by pictographs, right?
Ah,
Just because we
uh-huh.
don't understand what those pillars are saying doesn't mean that there's not a language or a story behind it. We just don't understand it yet, And
Correct.
maybe somebody does, and nobody just doesn't want to say that person's
Well,
correct.
right.
So
There's a reason they're
Correct.
not
Well, look,
excavating anymore, man. They saw the first of the story and they went,
yeah.
"Oh
Well,
shit, we know
we're
where
very
this
lucky.
goes. Don't let them read it." Something like that, probably.
yeah,
It's a matter of interpretation. When you look at the Kipu, that the language of the Pacific, there is just knots aligned with perpendicular other lines that have knots in them. how on earth did an academic look at that and thought, "Oh, this is a language," right? It's extremely fortunate. So we might be missing a lot by just looking at the rock art, or to pictogram, and not realizing the whole story behind it. It just might be a mnemonic to a complete story.
One thing you're not going to do is what, like, just we're covering here, is you're not going to try to communicate to the ages through written text. You know, if you know about ages and epochs, you're going to try to communicate to the next one through what you just said, pictographs,
Yeah.
right, and stone.
An oral tradition that accompanies it. You don't need to write it because you keep it alive. Just today, we don't have time to keep history alive. We need podcasts, because then people would gather and share stories constantly because they have nothing else to do, right?
Yeah, yeah. And you know, and that's like I said, these stories were told just like how TV and podcasting is to entertain people today. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
good TV and podcasting, because there was no bullshit. Everything was useful. There is a teaching behind everything. There is a moral story. There is a teaching.
Correct. I think storyteller is probably our oldest role next to shaman as human beings, you know, and probably our most sacred. It's just been my belief for a long time that telling stories, like you say, that's how we first did this thing, you know, that we're doing now with all this technology. So yeah, storytellers for a long time, for sure.
Yeah, and that's why I say, you know, I just want to see where this person learned it from, because I don't want somebody to add to the story that doesn't need to be there, because then that just throws me in a loop. You know, if you say something that's interesting, I'm gonna be like, ooh, let me read where you got that from, because I want to read that story myself. And you just say, hey, go do your own research, and I'm like, well, shit, you're talking to the wrong person to do their own research. You know?
Yeah, but to you all, would you believe today, as it was believed then in the 70s, that this race of alien beings that coming from a planet that is circling 3600 rotation cycle, coming in rockets, would we believe it today that we can do interstellar travel with rockets, with something that runs out? It doesn't work. If you're coming from outer space, you're not coming from fuel rocket, right? That's primitive technology.
Yeah, you know, I say that too, because they say that there are at least 450. They came here 450,000 years ago. You know, that's what a lot of people believe.
In rockets, because at the time, rockets were the most advanced thing that we had, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Or that we knew about collectively.
But see, this is this is why it gets interesting to me, because they do have a god that's known as the Sky Father, and he's Anu. So some people believe, because he is known as the Sky God, that he came from the sky. Well, a lot of times, if you look at a lot of these ancient sites that had their gods or anything that was in around, they were usually on a higher land than the people below. It's almost
Olympus,
like they had to show that they were on a higher status, and that's how they did it. And that's why a lot of times some people think of it like Mount Olympus or something like that from the Greeks and stuff like that. So that's a good example. Mountains was where they're at, but each god had their own thing. Like I said, there was many different Anuna/Anunnaki gods, but they're not all from the Sumerian. Some of them was added later on, like Marduk was later added on through the Babylonian time frame, later time frame. So,
where did Tiamat come from? How did that get in there?
Enuma Elish?
Yeah. Enuma Elish, exactly. So that's a good point. So the Enuma Elish is where it is basically the most descriptive creation story out there. And it tells you how the gods were created, how the universe was created, how Earth and so on and so forth was created and stuff like that. And this Enuma Elish was told during the Akito festival. So I forgot I had that on the slide. It's the Akito festival. So the Akito festival was celebrated at the Sumerian time frame, but the Enuma Elish came about later on when during the Babylonian time frame, which is basically just the whole creation. It's called the 7 tablets of creation, or there's different names for it, of course, but most people just know it as the Enuma Elish. And that's where you get most of all the creation story about everything. And that's okay. So that's where a lot of people say, well, the Sumerians talk about Nibiru and being a planet and stuff like that. No, that was the Babylonians. Sometimes Jupiter was known as Nibiru, and it was only for them to describe their gods. No difference than how the Greeks described their gods on planets and stuff like that. Now, what's very interesting is, remember when I was saying that where that Zechariah Sessions says that they came from planets Nibiru 3,600 years ago, blah, 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 or 36 every 3,600 years that it orbits our planet or the sun or whatnot, blah, blah, blah. Well, when he passed away, his niece published this book called the Anunnaki Chronicles, and it includes never before published writings, which you can see right here, right? So right here, he says the Hebrew original named them Nephilim. The teacher explained it meant giants, but I objected. Didn't it mean literally those who were cast down, who had descended to earth? That's where you get one of the descriptions. Now, he talked about that before, about his many things, but this is where he writes it. Now, he has another version, okay, in the same book. He literally wrote, those who came or descended to earth.
The most known.
Right? So that's another one, right? So you'll know different versions because of that. Then he has a third one, those who from heaven to earth came, and it said the exact meaning of the Hebrew term Nephilim that the Bible used. Well, if you go to the Strong Concordance 5303, Nephilim literally means just fall. Okay, the word origin, fall. So it doesn't mean that they fell from heaven, or they fell down and hurt themselves. They fell out of being righteous people, I guess, or I don't know. It could be anything, right? It just means fall.
Well, it sounds like he's
put your
pulling from the book of
interpretation in
Enoch
there
a
how
lot.
you want.
Sounds like he's pulling from Enoch a
that's
lot.
another thing. Yeah.
He was very well learned. He was very well learned. It's just he made a poor translation. That's all.
Yeah, he's not a bad person to learn from. The only thing I really disagree with him on is the fact that there's no planet Nibiru that orbits our sun every 3,600 years. I'll make it very clear. I believe there's extraterrestrials. I believe there's aliens. If they say scientifically that there's a billion planets and a billion galaxies and so on and so forth, and if they say 1% doesn't mean one thing. It means a multiple of things, but it could just be a small amount. So there has to be at least 2 or 3 other habitable planets like us, and it could be something that is more advanced than us. Who knows? But he gives 3 different meanings of what he mean, what Nephilim and all this means. And you can't do that
all
because
this higher, lower.
Yes.
That's what we do when we're talking. Look, my experience, you said you believe because of all the numbers out here in nature, right? The numbers of planets. I believe there's something else because of personal experience, right? Day and nighttime. There are things that can be part of this material universe. I can confirm that can do things that we don't think are possible while they're in this material universe. They can also bleep out and be gone, right? So my experience tells me to look at it dimensionally, right? Which we're all learning. Ricardo tapped on too. They're not coming here with rockets, but they're certainly, coming here in some shape or form.
Yeah.
Or were here already, or made us eventually.
At one time,
that's the thing. Stay here. You can extrapolate, man. Whenever I talk on this, and I say my experience, I try to just present it as such, right? Just the basic kernel that I got from the experience, right? And then how you apply that, how I apply it is up to you. Just like when we read and hear this stuff, how we interpret it.
When we first start looking at the human frequencies and how they relate to the Earth and so on, the first reports from science that are now completely removed were that our frequency was tuned exactly to the frequency of Mars and not of the Earth. And that circulated for about 6-7 years, and then it vanished. And now if you look, they'll tell you that we are completely tuned to the frequency of the Earth, to the Shaman frequency. But the initial tell from science was it was from Mars, right? So perhaps we are the aliens, and we see that Mars was completely devastated, right? So how
Yeah,
we got here? mm,
that, I mean, people say that there's enough evidence that people say that possibly happened. Because what is actually evidence? Well, evidence is just something that you can prove. Now, I give an example of what evidence can do to somebody. There are people right now in the United States prison system who's in prison for a crime they haven't done, but there was enough evidence to prosecute them and put them in prison. Right. So
Yep.
if they can make a mistake like that, then I mean, come on, what is really evidence? So throwing that word evidence out there doesn't mean a lot to some people out there. I know that because I know
No,
about the
it's
judicial
more
system.
interpretation of the evidence, right?
Exactly.
If you lean in
Exactly.
one direction or another, then you're going to get the conclusion that you're seeking, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, you
Where do
got,
you
yeah,
set
perhaps
your
even
exactly.
narrative? Where do you set your
Yeah.
narrative before
Basically,
you
that's
look
what
at the
I say
evidence?
every time. Narrative,
Yeah.
narrative, narrative. I say
Hmm.
that every
yeah,
single time. It's
but I
how you
think
want you.
the problem comes from lower still, because the problem is the foundations of our science and interpretation of past history, and we build upon those foundations, and we follow that line, and so it doesn't allow to create something that is completely different, because we are building from a system that serves as a base. That's why, for instance, astrophysics is failing dramatically to what they are finding with the new sensors, because it doesn't fill on the foundations that then grows and builds into the science that we use to interpret the universe, and yet it fails completely. And in terms of history, we are also using evidence, but that evidence is only evidence because it fits with the foundation that we built to understand that same history. This is a bit complicated, and probably I'm being very confusing, but I
No, I
hope you
hear you.
understood what I'm trying to say.
Uh,
Yeah, exactly. It
no,
creates that
yeah, I do.
problem,
I
man.
do too.
The narrative
And I,
blindness just takes effect and rolls on and on and on down the line.
Sure. If you learn
yeah.
as a child that white is blue, right?
Hmm.
You'll ever say that it's blue and yet it is white. So who's to say who's
You
right?
might have to go through a
It's all a matter
process of
of
near
interpretation.
insanity, sorting out that, in fact, that is white for yourself. Yes, it's a conundrum of the modern world. Welcome to it. Uh-huh.
Yeah. You know, and that brings me to this point right here on narrative. So Zachariah Sitchin, he has on the bottom right hand corner, he has this cylinder seal. This cylinder seal VA243 is usually where you see this arrows at. Is usually where he says that, you know, there's a planet Nibiru out there, right? And because of these dots out there. Now, what's interesting is that the Sumerian, this is not Sumerian, first of all, this is Akkadian. So, like I said, the Sumerians never really talked about a planet Nibiru. So, even if this does, let's just say for argument's sake, that Zachariah Sitchin was right, that this depicts Nibiru, right, that orbits our sun every 3,600 years. Okay, we'll go, and I'll get back to that. When I was talking about Dr. Michael S. Heiser earlier in his website, Sitchin is Wrong, this is actually a screenshot from his website. They're both passed away. Dr. Michael S. Heiser passed away, I think, a couple of years ago now. So his website might not be up too much longer. It just depends if he, you know, had an estate to keep it up. But I took a screenshot, and he literally gives you the translation. What that cylinder seal that Zachariah Sitchin was holding up. Now you can see in the red where it says line one. Line one is on both left and the right side. And it says Dub Siga or Dub Saiga. I'm not sure exactly how to say that, but it just basically means a personal name of an apparently powerful person. Then line two is where the blue is at. And that right there inscription just says Iliad, and it's just another name, personal name, this time of the seal's owner. Now, what I always tell people when they say, yeah, first of all, a lot of people don't know about cylinder seal VA243, but the ones that do know about it, they don't know what the translation says. And I usually tell them, I said, cylinder seal VA243 has more to do with German than it does with planet Nibiru, because line 3 is literally in German, and it says Dinecht, which is basically German for your servant. So I don't know exactly how this man got to it. He explains it and then further you know, more into, you know, into this website that he has. I just don't understand it well enough to explain it to you, but I just know that he just was able to basically say in so many words that cylinder seal VA243 has more to do with German than planet Nibiru, because nothing
Do
on
you
here
know
says
if
it.
do you know if line 1
Hmm.
represents any of the kings from the list?
When I look at it, no, but line 2 does to me. And that's the one that looks like Anunnaki, the
So
star.
so line 1 would be a god, line 2 would be the king, and line 3 is he's saying that he's a servant to the god.
Yeah, basically. Yep.
Like
But
cartouche in hieroglyphs.
but this is the cylinder seal right here. Like I
Mhm.
said, you can see that it has the inscriptions. He just says that, right there. But Dr. Michael S. Heiser goes more into the Pleiades and stuff like that. And I'm not here to talk about Pleiades because that's a whole, that takes up too much time to even try to bring that up. But I can say personally, just because I learned this from him, from his website, I don't agree with him on the Pleiades thing either. But I'm also not a translator. I just don't understand how he came up with Pleiades.
Hmm.
So I'm still
Is it
looking
to do
into it.
is it to do with the funny thing between the two figures on the right?
Um, well, I know that the horns represent gods and goddesses. So I know those two that have what those look like horns, that's a god and goddess. I can
No,
say that.
I mean like it looks like a branch between the two figures that divides in three on the top. Is that what he considers the plate is?
Yeah, the stars, you see where the arrow's at?
No, I'm meaning on the other side, the other one.
The staff in the middle between the
Oh, the
two
staff, you
dudes on
talking
the
about the
right.
staff?
Yeah, I think that's where he getting the play. That's 3 points at the top.
This is moped hand.
I never looked at that, so that's actually interesting. Yeah, I ain't never looked at that. Well, I'm gonna
Almost
be
looks
looking
like an elliptical or something.
Yeah.
at. No, I'm serious. Like, but see, that's what I'm saying is
It's a
that
gazelle
Dr.
machine.
Michael S. Heiser. Yeah, it's just interesting to me because Dr. Michael S. Heiser literally gives you a reason on why it's not having to do anything with Planet Nibiru. So now I'm up in the air, like, okay, where did Zachariah Sitchin say that there's Planet Nibiru? Because this is the only thing that he really gives you a certain idea from.
Because at the time there was already a theory of Planet X. Because
Yeah.
because even the guy that discovered Neptune, I can't remember his name, he discovered Neptune just by a mathematical equation. And then he gave the coordinates to an astronomer that looked at the telescope and found the planet. Right? That's how amazing these people could be back then. And through when they sum all the mathematics of the gravity, they found that they couldn't explain certain of the movements without existing a 10th planet. That now it's the 9th because we eliminated Pluto. So, and if you look into the news on that, now they are more than sure that there exists some object that is probably small and dense orbiting the outer skirms of the solar system and they're actively looking for planet 9 that was at the time planet 10. And that's how that's how Sitchin at the time decided that, well, this is the planet. Let's create a time frame that they don't know. It's much more than 36,000 years, much more than that, according to all sources in astrophysics. But it just made, because that's what the theories of the time were, that they exist this planet around the solar system that could even dive closer to the sun. So he just added one and one from his perspective and created that tale.
Yeah, that's why I said, like, in his books he doesn't actually give you sources. He throws out names like the Numa Elish, the Epic
Yeah.
of Gilgamesh, the Atrahasis. He throws those names out, but when you actually read those sources, I don't actually get the sense of it, and that's why I challenge people to read it and really read it and understand it, because it doesn't do it. Like, when I said that the gods were on top of the mountains or on higher ground, like, this is a replica of Nibiru, or which is now known as Nippur. It's in Iraq. It's a real place in Iraq. Nibiru was a real place in Iraq. It just wasn't a planet or at least I haven't found evidence, and I'll get into that in a second. But this is just basically a replica of how they would be. They would be on top of the hill, higher than everybody else and stuff like that. But now this is what's interesting. Now, like I said, I believe in extraterrestrials, things outside of our planet. I believe in all that stuff. What I wanted to know was where the Anuna/Anunnaki came from. So this is the Oxford Handbook of Cuneiform Culture. So ETCSL, in that book that I mentioned earlier, the Literature of Ancient Sumer, that's from Oxford also. This is just the cuneiform culture of it. And when I bought this book, I learned that it says right here, it literally says, according to Mesopotamian tradition, these big fish are the companies of the god of wisdom, Enki/Ea, who dwells in the depths of the sea. They regularly emerge from the sea in order to teach mankind the cornerstone of civilizations such as agriculture, kingship, justice, and writing before the flood ended their coexistence. Now, this is where they supposedly came from, is the depths of the sea. And now,
Dude, that sounds precisely like survivors of an apocalypse. Or, think if the Atlantis, whatever term you use, these dudes knew it was coming. What would they start doing? They start going out from the sea in boats and start trying to teach everybody this shit, and then boom, this is great, man. Keep going. Sorry. You got me excited. That's exactly what my mind hears, though, as soon as you read that.
Yep.
And what mythology we have saying exactly what is in this text?
Yeah, all around the world, South America, Asia, everywhere.
That's what I was going to say.
The Dogon.
Yeah, and I'm going to get into that in just a second. See you catching on. See, the puzzle pieces are making more sense when there's actual facts being brought to the table. Now, this is why I said this is important.
Well done. You're right.
Because
man.
remember when I talked about pictographs and what was it? Pictographs are like emojis almost, so you could tell a story in emojis like how you would with anything else. So if you look at Enki, he's known as a fish god. Well, there are many different fish gods out there, right? If you look at all the major mythologies, all the gods came from some type of water. And if you believe in some type of aliens, you believe in USOs, right? The ones that come from the water instead. But my point is that the text actually says that they came from the depths of the sea, and their depictions showed them as fish gods. Now, there are depictions later on during the Babylonian time frame that they were depicted with like what some people would look like angels, but that's later on. The beginning depictions was them fish gods, which just is just interesting to me because everybody says we don't know where the Anunnaki from. Some people will argue that they came from planet Nibiru, and some people will say they don't know. Well, there's actually a book out there that gives you the reason why they say they came from the depths of the sea, and they give you, the depictions of the gods and breaks it down for you. So, and it just makes sense since they were big fish gods.
If you remember angel in these fish gods, dude, they either came from the sky or they came from the water, right? Today we call it a USO or UFO, but if it came from the water, way back when, primitive man would have called it fish, right? If it came from the air, primitive man would have given it wings and called it angel.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about what Sons of Sesh said to Solon the Elder, that there were many cases of catastrophes in the world, and they describe them as ekpyrosis, that is destruction by fire, and cataclysmos, that is destruction by water. So when in this case, we're clearly at a time when we know there was a cataclysm by water, and around 800 years before this, or 1,000 years, or 600 years, it doesn't matter. So if the land is devastated, all the animals die. The only animals that survive are fish. So life comes only from the water, right? So I think that the focus comes a lot from there. And then it's mixed with the ancient traditions and the ancient tales, and it's reconfigured to the present reality.
Right on. And this is where it brings up the point is that when you read anything about the Anuna / the Anunnaki from the Mesopotamians, they always have the word Abzu in there, which is literally meaning Ab means ocean and Zu means to know. So it was the name for fresh water from underground aquifers that was given a religious quality in Sumerian and Akkadian mythology, like springs, lakes, rivers, wells, and other sources of fresh water. But you know, fresh
And
water could be
husband of Tiamat, right?
yeah. That's what I'm saying is that water plays a major part in this. So the Anunnaki, like Jason was saying earlier, they could have came from the skies, or they could have came from the depths of the sea. But the evidence is showing they came from the depths of the sea. So why are people really arguing? We know more about. They say we know more about our space than we know about our own oceans. Why is
Oceans,
that?
yeah.
You know. So, just to me, just knowing the fact that the evidence is still pointing to the water rather than something outside of Earth's atmosphere. Here's uh, from the book it's called titled "The Song of the Hoe," and it's literally when I was talking about the agriculture. This follows under their agricultural stuff. It says in those separating heaven from the earth and linkage the two at Duranki, the sacred term for Nibru. So they had it could be Durankai, which had is spelled different. Say people say it differently, but this word is a sacred term for Nibru. So this is a sacred term that is given for Nibru. Um, and that word right there is not found about any type of planet orbiting our sun either. And
Yeah,
then
it
this is
sounds more
also
like
from the
it's
book
defining
too,
a space, not a
where it
physical
says
thing.
yeah,
Sorry, I just
it's
said it.
just
I agree with you.
yeah,
Yeah, it
because
sounds like it's
a good
a
example would
space,
be
between.
yeah, no, yeah, and I give a good example of that when astronauts train for space, they train in what? Water, right? So it's how do you think about it? How do you play it in an understanding? So what does the sources actually say? But it does say here, unusually, the beginning of this narrative attempts to normalize the setting, location, and actors. Everything is just ordinary. And unlike many other mythical narratives, it takes place in the city of Nibiru, a real known location. So they know that Nibiru/Nibiru is a location. A Nibiru is an Akkadian term, just like Anunnaki is a Akkadian term. Nibru, Nibru, is the Sumerian. So that's why they're using the word Sumerians here, or using the word Nibiru here. But they know that it's a location that's in there. And I'll get more into Nibiru because, another one is, and Nibiru literally means man from the city of Nibiru. So it's telling you, that there's a group of individuals, right? That's there. And then they give my Nibiru where black birch trees grow in a good place. So they give you a description of what grew in Nibiru, right? And trees grew in there, certain types of trees. There was a city, the one we live in. Nibiru was the city one we live in, right? And then they give you different cities that are different places that was lived in. But Nibiru was a location on planet Earth. Everybody knows that so far. And then it says, in the shrine of Nibiru, Enki provided a meal for Enlil. So this is interesting because most people think or know that Enlil and Enki are brothers. But here it says, in the shrine of Nibiru, Enki provided a meal for his father, Enlil, his father.
Could
So now
this be
you're
the
like,
seal that you just showed us?
what's that?
Could be the seal. Inky providing a meal for Ellie. Could be the seal, the scene in the seal.
Oh, yeah, Cylinder Self. See, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how they would translate that. I've seen it translated different ways, and I just know what Michael Heiser says on the cuneiform, but exactly what the picture depicts, I couldn't tell you. But I mean, that's a good question. I mean, like I said, the horns always depicted um, uh, a god or a goddess. Just like how Moses was depicted with fire face or horns and stuff. So it represented that in some way. So here it says in the back of the book about Nibiru, an important city and cult center in the north of Sumer, where the large majority of the manuscripts for the Sumerian literature have been found. But a lot of people would say, and they name their city Nibiru if they came from planet Nibiru. And I was just thinking, well, the oldest city in the Sumerian cities is Eridu, right? Which is usually known as the oldest Sumer city. So Eridu is older than Nibiru. So it just that part. That's not a good argument when people say, "Well, when they name their city, when they name, when Nibiru be the oldest city first, instead of Eridu." So, and like I said, I've already talked about it. How, these, everybody knows the Anunnaki. They're from the Babylonians, Hittites, Sumerians, Assyrians, and so on and so forth. But this is a little thing that I put together. It was I'm still slowly putting it together. But these are like the gods from the Anunnaki that are related to the Egyptians, the Greek, the Mesoamericans, the biblical gods, some of them Native Americans, the Aboriginal Australians, Romans, the Celtics, the Yoruba, Taino, and the Dogon. So when uh, um, uh, Ricardo was talking about the Dogon tribe earlier, the Dogon tribe were actually the first people who inhabited the land of Egypt. They're supposed to have been the group that was there first or longer, and then they got pushed away during the Islamic takeover and stuff. But their gods, and I actually had, and so did Mike and Dave. They had the luxury to talk to Larry Scratton, who wrote the book "Doggone The Science of the Doggone." So we both got to talk to him. I'm trying to hook Nick up with him now. But he talks about the Doggone tribe a lot, and the Doggone tribe seems to have an older pictographic or writing system than the Sumerians, and a lot of people don't know that, but that's what is argued among out there through the scholars. So the Doggone tribers are very important people, but I just try to put this little list together. I know we got to go on to Dave in a little bit and on his presentation, but I wanted to bring up metallurgy. A lot of people are wondering what was the fruit of knowledge that was so forbidden.
That's what mine's about.
Yeah. So Anton Parks wrote this book Eden, and he actually gives his cuneiform tablet identifiers of where you can find what the cuneiform tablets say for themselves. So if you want to challenge them, you can learn the language yourself and translate it and say how wrong he is and why he's wrong. But until then, you can only go off of what he provided. And he says in his book, and he compares this to the New American Standard Bible. He says, cuneiform tablet identifier CBS 11065. The artisan Enki revealed the secret of metallurgy to the woman, while his sons, the great messenger observers, cast metal and cohabited with her, the mother of the human race. The mother knows the secret of the gods, the tool revealed. So it was metallurgy that was given to the woman for the forbidden fruit of knowledge. And he compares it to Genesis 6, 1 through 5, and the book of Enoch also, chapter 8 and 1. So when Jason, where'd Jason go? He left, huh?
He's been in and out.
Yeah, so when Jason was talking earlier about Enoch, that's where you can get some of the relationship between the Enoch, because some people do use the book of Enoch as their source. But he actually, like I say, he gives you the tablet identifier and what it says, and then he compares it to whatever what's ever in the Bible. And this is also still in his book. The knowledge of the forbidden fruit was simply that of tool making, whose secret was not to be divulged. And then it just tells you, later on that Enki incited humans to reproduce themselves. So he actually, puts that in this book. That's pretty interesting. But here is more sources where he talks about it was metallurgy. CBS 8322, he had brought metallurgy, our only Lord has spread the secret of the abode. And then you got CBS 065, column 3, the gods find out that the human beings initiated by serpent Enki now have clothing. A lot of people don't, when they look at the serpent god, they look at it as an evil god. But some people would say Enki was Jesus or something like that, or he was a good god, but he was known as the serpent to some of these individuals. But it's interesting he says serpent, because remember when I showed him that he was in this fish suit? So what do they really consider a serpent? Was he a serpent type fish or something? Who knows? I mean, yeah. What was their meaning and understanding. And that's why I say everybody has their own translations of what they believe. So some people believe Enki was a serpent, and some people believe he was a fish god. So now how do you find a happy medium between them? Well, now they gotta explain it to us. But
Sure, but
they're not here to do it.
the serpent symbology only became connotated with evil
Yeah.
after Christianity. And in fact, I think that the first translations doesn't say snake or serpent. They have another name. I'm not sure, but I have that in mind. But the serpent was always the teacher. It's a global hallmark all over,
It was a
even in
knowledge.
the Americas. Yeah.
Well, it's also what you call an entropic phenomena, right? When you take hallucinogens, namely psilocybin, the geometric patterns begin and most often, depending on the dosage, lead to seeing snakes, right? In fact, that's when I know I've reached the proper place for the meeting I take them for, right? Is when the roots and all start to become snakes. So it's no coincidence that snake is used both in the Christian Bible. At least the story of Adam and Eve is associated with knowledge. And like Ricardo said, shamans and all cultures have long known that the serpent, just sort of because of the way it interacts with your system, begins the entree point into the spiritual visionary experience.
Yeah, and that, and like I said, that I believe in spiritual stuff. I have my own rendezvous with that, and I'm very familiar with that side of the world. And that's why I say I just want to learn more, because a lot of what I've learned about chakras and how to balance my chakras was reading books. I didn't have somebody to tell me, or to have somebody that was near me that can put me on it. So I had to read from people who said, hey, this is what you could possibly do, and then how to control your sleep paralysis and your so on and so forth. And it takes me to a place to where I want to see it from my understanding. I want to interpret it for myself. And that's why when I mentioned earlier about the Aikido festival, that literally was just basically a festival to tell stories about, the creation of humans, and, whose God is better than what God and what happened. It just told a story. Nobody really knows exactly what's fact over fiction, because a lot of everybody that translated some of these tablets has their own thing. And I can't knock Sitchin for what he does or what he did. But what I can say is that there were people that were able to show that he was incorrect. And instead of him, going back at him and saying, I'm going to break it down for you simple and stupid way, that now nobody really knows the truth, but I can only go off what's available to the sources, because if I go to his book, I can't give out cuneiform tablet identifiers. I have to go to the other sources that I've read to give that. And like I said, from the electronic text corpus Sumerian literature, this is my favorite website, because everybody has a phone in their hand. And if, like I said earlier, if you type in Anunnaki on that website on the search bar, it won't bring up anything about the Anunnaki. You have to type in Anuna. So you have to use the right words for it to come up and share, basically, or bring up the stuff that it's supposed to bring. But this is just from the electronic text corpus of Sumerian literature, where you have, in those days and the days when heaven and earth were created, in those nights and the nights when heaven and earth were created, in those years and the years when the fates were determined, when the Anuna gods were born, when the goddesses were taken in marriage, when the goddesses were distributed in heaven and earth. And it just goes on, that you could get a sense of how this is like one of the creation stories, right? It's just a very simple creation story. And then you have the debate between grain and sheep, where at the time Enki spoke to Enlil, Father Enlil, now sheep and grain have created on the holy mound, let us send down them from the holy mound. Now, this is interesting. Like I said, a lot of people think that Enki and Enlil are brothers, but a lot of times they're known as father and son. One is the father and son, and it actually flip-flops also. So that's pretty interesting. And then of course, I have in here with Inanna and Anu, most people know him as, who created gods and humankind, gazed at holy Inanna and dressed a favorite wife who travels by his side. And this is just basically, I brought it in here because of the simple fact that we have a creation of how An is supposed to really create the gods. and human kindness, so on and so forth.
Isn't it funny that, can you go back the slide?
Mound. Are you going to say mound? Did you see the mound also? The holy mound?
I will leave that one to you.
What caught me? Sorry, go ahead, mate.
I will let that to you. But what I saw was sheep and grain. And if we change the translation of grain to seed, you have sheep and his seed. And we had Adam and Eve going thrown out of paradise. We have a circle of what happens in the Bible once again. I'm not sure if I'm the only one seeing it, but
no, I see it now because grain and sheep, the debate between grain and sheep, because Cain came.
Mound, yep.
Yeah, I see that.
I see that as well. Yeah. And the fact, I had to chime in because with the mound building culture, right? And I see that it's not the holy mountain or the holy castle, it's the holy mound. That's really interesting. That's great, man. Thanks for sharing this.
In the Egyptian odd gods or odd goats, it has a strange name, odd goats. It's also a mound. It's not a mountain.
Well, mounds came before pyramids, right? We look at all pyramids. What do they usually find underneath? They find a mound that began it. And what do they usually find somewhere under that? Some sort of holy source of water. Like I kept from mentioning, but you hit that early on there, man, when you were talking about the water, the source of water being important to them, because the translation, I think, Anzu or whichever it was.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that at the mounds, and same here, I find all these native mounds, and they're all near some sort of source of water, be it a small tributary original creek or be it underground, like right behind me now, water coming up from below ground. It was critical. Then they chose the mound, and then, of course, man came along and put rocks on it and called it pyramids.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that one's loaded right there, that quote, man. This is great.
And this is where it's interesting because they do talk about mounds in here. So that's a great thing to catch, is that we know mounds are important in pyramids, and that mounds had to come first and so on and so forth. It's just that if you read these texts for yourself, you can interpret it different ways, but you won't interpret something that says that Anunnaki came from planet Nibiru that orbit our sun every 3,600 years.
No, you certainly won't. That's what I'm enjoying about your. I didn't know any of this,
fun.
And you're educating me, because I would have just believed, if I didn't know the difference. If I never read Sitchin, I didn't even know he was just some dude in the 70s. You know what I mean? I thought at best maybe he was back in the 40s, early on in the sci-fi game. But yeah, you're doing a great job, man, of telling us all stuff we didn't know, and this is key here about Nibiru.
I appreciate it
because
I've read Sitchin first, and that was my first exposure to it. So Tyrone and I have talked about before, if that's the case for you, then you really have to go back and find original source and kind of weed through the misinformation. It's really a disservice to the story for him to have put that in there. So
yeah, but how can you
David?
How can you read Sitchin and not be interested? Well, what are his sources? Let's go and look where we get this. Yeah, right. And then immediately you find out, oh, okay, he's full of bullshit. Okay.
I started with him too. I've read his books too. Like I said, he wrote his book in 1976, and then he slowly wrote books past that. And I was born in the 80s, so of course I read his books later, of course. And like I said, I had a choice between guys that they shared in the Bible, or the Bibles, I should say, or these extraterrestrial things. And then when I read that, it comes from the depths of the sea, it just makes me wonder more, because what is the meaning of that? Could it also mean hollow earth, inner earth, and so on and so forth? I mean, there's a possibility, but my point is that I haven't been able to find something that says they came from our planet, or a different planet that orbits our sun. And now, like I said, I believe in extraterrestrials and aliens outside of there and stuff like that. What's the difference between the depths of the sea and outside our Earth's atmosphere? If they're coming from the seas and they can fly around and do all this crazy high-tech technology movements and all this other stuff, why are you still looking in the sky if you've literally been told for thousands of years they've been coming from the depths of the sea? It's like telling people you're going to see $100 come out the sky. You'll see $100 faster on the ground, looking on the ground, than you will looking in the sky.
Oh, that's good. That's so true, and I think you're right on, dude. Because look, it's less of a leap, right? A reasoning leap. If we already kind of are harping on a civilization, which this is telling us, something before this catastrophe, right? That was somehow advanced, possibly at least to map the world and crack longitude, right? What if they had? What if we, somebody like us today, in our advancement, had 100 years notice that the end was coming, right? You see this thing in the sky, you're smart, you know what it means. What would you do? Would there be a faction that would take whatever technology is available and go, we can dodge this motherfucker? Okay, we got to go deep, we got to go far, and you got to shut the fuck up and not tell anybody. Right?
or you
That is
use it,
not that far of a leap.
or you use it to control the masses, as the Aztecs did, or for instance.
Yeah,
Right.
but my point is that what's the argument from the seas to outside of Earth's atmosphere? What, neither one of them is either good. Shit, they more advanced than us. That's the only thing they, you know what I'm saying? So tell us where we need to protect ourselves
Right.
at, you know what I'm saying? Like
Whose side are they fucking on? Let's get to the important shit, please.
Yeah, why you trying to tell me to look away? You know what I'm saying? You're tapping me on my left shoulder, but you're on my right side. You know what I mean? So you want me to turn my head to the left, and you're sitting there right there to my right side. Now I look like a fool because I'm looking over onto the left side of me. You know what I mean?
They
I
call
don't know
them
if they,
fish. I know what the fuck that means. They're under our ocean. Get down there, damn it. Exactly.
I mean, Jesus was even known as a fish god, right? And he
Right.
walked on
Pisces,
water. He
right?
walked on water.
Yeah.
Fisher of
How can
men.
you look at that?
Fisher of men, yeah.
Men, right?
Walking on water means to me that the movement, that this individual was able to swim and be in movement and stride in water as somebody
Right.
would be walking.
Right. Well, it does. I don't know. The miracles always, to me, sound much more like, cast your nets on this side, right? Well,
Yeah.
to me, that really translates as a dude who's, listening to God. Because imagine if God just sitting there in your ear and you're standing there on that boat and they're not catching fish, and God just goes, all right, listen, trust me. In a second, tell them to cast left. Okay, watch this shit. And then Jesus casts on the left, and they cast on the left, and there it is.
He's a time travel. He had a sonar. He knew where the fish was.
Right, exactly. The boss man was down there in that USO telling him where they were, making a move to the other side.
But and that's pretty much my presentation right there. Just I'm still going to add to it. This is I think the basics, and just the basic of the Anuna/Anunnaki is that they didn't come from a planet Nibiru. They came from the depths of the sea, and they were depicted as these types of gods in their earlier phases. I also know there's this fish called the goatfish, and I just learned this just recently, that Enki was known as a goatfish. And if you look at what type of fish that is, it's a weird looking fish, but because Enki was depicted as a goat sometimes, he was known as the goatfish. So that's something that I learned. So it's just interesting how all these things come and play together.
It's funny, take the modern interpretation of goat, right? Greatest fish man of all time was Enki.
Well, the goat is more associated with evil today, but
The image, correct, but the kids, the terminology from whatever Matt Damon movie that was.
I just wonder, was Jesus the first surfer and they didn't know what a board was, so he was walking on water?
It's so funny because just think about it. When somebody says walking on water, I try to think outside the box, and I would just think that like this person was able to swim and move in water like somebody would stride that
like they
somebody
have
could do
command
on
of the
water.
water.
Yeah, somebody wants to prove they can swim in a hurricane. I tried that once.
Well,
But
here's
it
another
also
example.
really did. It also sounds to me, look, it's a great metaphor for any kind of spiritual or even just knowledge, right? Like we're working with here today, understanding, right? When you got Peter there, and if you just see it more as a metaphor of what was going on between these two individuals, right? Jesus is showing him all this stuff, about inside him and about outside, and how God and he can interplay, right? So how do you maintain that? Well, you obviously got to stay in the moment with God, right? You got to look neither before or after. Just like he told you when he was walking on the water, don't look down, right? Whatever you do, focus on me. And that just translates to what those of us seeking spiritual growth, connection with God, or even knowledge in this material plane have to do, right? Which is stay centered in this moment, focused with it. That's how I hear the walking on water bit myself anyway.
You know, it's interesting you say that, and I'm done after this. This is my last slide. Of course, I have the slide to promote my book and stuff like that. But the last thing I was going to say, that's interesting because you know, okay, like I said, I believe in things outside of our planet, but I believe that we were created and we're also special individuals. A lot of people say that a lot of paranormal, spiritual things, demons, and evil things want our soul, right? That's why that there's exorcism and stuff like that. Something
They
wants our
can't have
soul.
that shit.
Yeah, it's our soul is special to us. Like no aliens or anything else has that. That some people believe that the aliens are abducting people because they're trying to figure out how to mimic the soul or whatever.
Right.
We have a special thing about us that carries on even after this flesh and body dies. We continue. And if we learn how to tap into our Akashic records, our personal Akashic records, we can remember everything from our past lives. The problem is that over time that hasn't been achieved. But my point is that
Well, this world has been set up, bro, to keep us from achieving it. That's
yeah,
why what
exactly.
you're doing and we're exhibiting here is so fucking commendable. Excuse my language, but it should be said. Is this
It's
world
where
set up to keep us from this stuff?
it's where your focus is pointed at. So
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's it. That's it pretty much. Dave, if you're ready, if y'all have any questions, like I said, I'm gonna add to this questions or anything because I want to make it to the point where it's the basics.
Yeah.
If the basics is that they came from Planet Nibiru, give me sources like the sources that I just researched that says that they came from the depths of sea versus think from a Planet Nibiru. And then if you want to argue, that there is a planet Nibiru out there, the sources will help you with your argument, just like the sources are helping me with mine. If the
This is
depictions are
great.
in fish
Yeah.
god, then I don't know what to say. And it's not
look,
even me being right or wrong. It's just that this is what is out there. So I just want to know the truth too, because
You're giving us the sources, man. It doesn't matter
yeah,
if you know what I'm saying. Right or wrong doesn't enter into it. That's part of why this is brilliant. Sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to commend you, man.
thank you.
You taught me so much, and you wrapped it around to something that fits a narrative I already exposed myself to with my physical findings, and that's just I haven't seen anybody else do that because, like you said, everybody else wants it to be this thing from elsewhere or this whatever. But you're nailing it, showing us all that actually, when you go to source, it sounds a little more like what we might think some crazy, weird, advanced humans.
yeah.
This is
Yeah.
good.
I throw one more thing out there. You got to remember, they say that we're like 70% something body of water. So we look within ourselves. What do we usually find?
Water.
So I'll
And
just
Yeah.
leave it at that.
I'm a Cancer sign. I'm right there fucking with you on that, man. Water is life, bro.
one of the
Yeah,
things
that's
that
it.
I got from your presentation is that you made me think of this that I haven't, and I looked at this many times. Is that it shows us that whenever this started, 36 BC, 3600 BC, or 3200 BC, it also moves from the matriarchal. Sorry, you have to help me saying this. From the matriarchal society to
Matriarchal.
matriarchal. Thank you, matriarchal society to a patriarchal society, because you don't see the goddesses ruling here. So we see the predominance of gods. There are goddesses still, but they are the ones giving the cards. So I find it funny that after the cataclysm, they decided that it was time for man to rule instead of being a world of women and animistic.
Yeah. The
Yeah,
first.
well,
Yep.
when we first had you on, Tyrone, you were telling us you were making a presentation. You did it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's good. I love the way that you presented it.
Thank you. Thank you.
I do too, and I like that it's a rundown of like you said, the basics. And like we
Mhm.
talked about how you can mess up your memory and then you have to go back and fill in the holes and fix it. When if you would just get the basics from the start, it's so much easier.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Tyrone,
Appreciate it.
dispelling narrative blindness, getting rid of Sitchin's, BS narrative, and getting us to some
No,
facts here.
it's a great story. I advise
Yes.
everyone to read it. It's an amazing
Right.
story.
For
That's
sure.
why everybody, I guess, is taking it as fact. And, if you're like I was, and you use even secondary sources on this stuff, you still just hear this Nibiru thing thrown out, named Billy Carson, whoever, right, as some sort of fact.
Yeah.
So this has been enlightening, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I, you know, I try to avoid saying his name, but since you brought him up, you know, he really believes this, and I just don't understand because he says he's read so much. I mean, he even prides himself on reading so much. And I always tell people this, and he actually put a list of all his books out before when he first started. I took a screenshot of it, um, but
Like the books that he's read?
yeah, the books that he's read. He actually motivated me to put my books on my website, so I actually have a list of books that I've read and personally own on my website. But I took a screenshot and I noticed that it had to do a lot with aliens. Well, I will always say this: if you surround yourself with people who believe in aliens, you're going to believe in aliens. Eventually, you will. You know what I'm saying? Or you're
Well, the
gonna.
man's got an audience for sure, and you gotta stick with and cater to your audience once you commit to an audience, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I,
Maybe his wife took the books in the divorce. I hear they're splitting, so
Yeah.
we'll lay off. And sounds like he's got enough going on at the moment. But
and
I see it as that. I saw early on that he probably, like Sitchin, should be taken with a grain of salt, going, I can get enjoyment just from watching this show. You know what I mean? This is entertaining, but when it's not presented as full-on entertainment and sources aren't cited, that's where we get in trouble, you know?
Yeah.
And you're helping clear that up, bro. This is,
For sure.
yeah.
and Tyrone used the word that is important here. That is belief. And
Right.
I heard once an African guy say this, and I never forget it. That is, we only believe in what we don't know, because what we know, we know.
We know exactly, man.
Yes, yes.
Exactly. It goes from belief to knowing, and that's when you're on to something.
Okay. Dave.
Do I have to be done by 1 o'clock? Because if so, I don't have time.
No. What time is it now?
Because Sarah has to get
12:30.
her kid off
It's
the bus at 1
12:30.
o'clock.
We can go till like 1:30 if we need to, if everyone's okay with that.
I'm okay with that. I thought I had to be done at 1, so I was like,
It's okay.
there's
The
no-
whole thing
I
just kind of
can't
got
be done
pushed
at 1.
back. It's all right.
Yeah, it's fine.
Ricardo,
I have
leave it on
some wiggle
mute.
room.
I'll do the same, okay? Sorry, Dave. We'll keep this one done.
No, it's all good. I just in my head I thought that I had a 1 o'clock deadline, and I was thinking there's no way that's going to happen. I did want to say though about Tyrone. I always appreciate what Tyrone does because he's bringing the sources, and we have major gaps and uncertainties even in the sources that like talk about this subject. So almost everything is speculation when we're talking about the Anunnaki, except for what Tyrone showed us today. Look, I like throwing Billy Carson on at midnight when I can't sleep and listening to Tiamat smash into New Brewery and create Earth and the moon and shit like that. That's fun
Right.
for me. But you know, I appreciate when Tyrone goes, well, actually, this is what they said. I'm looking forward to the future where Tyrone does this with more topics and more subjects.
Definitely.
There's a niche here,
you know,
it's like
get
White
this.
Files without the hecklefish, and he brings receipts. There's, like you say, there's definitely a spot to be filled with this type of work if it's really what you're into, Tyrone. This is great. Sorry.
No worries. No worries. Yeah, so we were talking about metallurgy, which kind of goes into what I'm talking about today. I'm going to share screen, but I guess I just want to give a little thing about what I'm talking about today. Where is it? Yeah. Yeah, so I guess I will start by asking, like, for you guys, what is off the top of your head, which culture had the most advanced gold, specifically gold, metallurgy, the oldest and most advanced in the world? Does anyone know? There's
Oldest.
some popular guesses out there.
I've got some shit sitting on the shelf behind me that might bring that into question for everybody, so I probably won't answer. I think it goes back before the catastrophe myself, but I wouldn't have an answer as far as modern timeline.
How about known?
Right, yeah.
Known.
Sorry, no comment.
I don't know.
Anyone?
I can't remember, but it starts with a B. I can't remember exactly where it is. I think it's in Europe.
I knew Tyrone would have it. I was sure Ricardo would get
Well,
this.
I'll tell you why I don't get this.
The Portuguese.
What is it?
Because to me, metallurgy started way before what you're going to say.
It's known. I'm gonna go again.
It is known. It
Right.
is known.
It
The
is
problem
known.
is there are no evidences, because when you use this method, you destroy everything that you use to build the metal, right? And it's still done today, and it leaves no traces but the charred soil that you find all over the settlements, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So-
let me try this again. Actual evidence of known metallurgy with gold.
With gold, no, I'll leave.
Okay. Which
I'll leave that to
culture?
you. I don't know.
I don't know.
Because I'm just saying, I believe that civilization is much older than we think it is, and we were probably fucking around with metal and stuff like that like tens of thousands of years ago. But I'm just talking about like actual archaeological sites and civilizations that we know of and have evidence of.
Did they have gold in
And,
Sumer, Babylon, Mesopotamia? I don't know.
Yes, they did.
I was thinking maybe Babylon.
They did. Yeah. They had it in Celtic. The Celts had some, right? They had it in. We'll get into all that.
We'll have to go back further
it,
back than the Babylonians and the Sumerians to find the first beads of gold found in graves and with people.
Yeah. Well, I heard about this site talking to the geophysicist Stephen Burns, and this is not his area of expertise, but he mentioned, because I had asked him, like, if you could go to, like, I asked him, what are your most interesting sites, ancient sites in the world, and he mentioned this one. Tyrone got it because it does start with a V and it can't be any other one. But the name of the site is Varna, and it's in Bulgaria.
Yeah.
Did you guys
Yeah,
know
I
of this
couldn't
site?
remember the name of it. Yeah, I remember that shit. Because everybody says Africa is, but it's not. It's not.
I was going to say Africa.
Yeah, that's what some people say, but it's actually the one.
It probably is Africa. Like, if we're going off what Ricardo was talking about, right? Like, just the idea that civilization is cyclical and we've been, it's much older than we think it is, which I'm sure we all sitting here on this panel believe, right? But I'm talking about, like, what do we know, right? What do we know for sure? I'm going to screen share because I did make a PowerPoint presentation on this. I got a new computer and I've been making a lot of PowerPoint presentations. So sorry about that. This is the question that I asked already. And I wanted to ask too, quickly, how do most sites get found? Most archaeological sites get found? Is it from like active archaeological digging?
I think by accident.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's somebody
agriculture, construction.
Yeah.
Here in America, it's construction, and in the States, especially that legally mandated. You notice the discoveries are higher.
And this is a necropolis, the Varna necropolis. It's the dawn of metallurgical mastery and social complexity, according to some. I need to drop this down here. There we go. That's better. And this dude on the right looks like Russell Brand. I don't know why. But that's obviously the artistic. They made that guy. It's in the museum showing how he was buried, right? And it was discovered in Bulgaria. And I think it was in 1972, 74, something like that, at a construction site. Okay. And typically when that happens, it's like, hold up, stop construction, like call the archaeologists. Here would be call NAGPRA, right? See what they want us to do with it.
Call the anthropologists.
Call the anthropologist.
Don't call anybody. That's my advice.
Call the religious.
Call Jason.
Yeah. But this is the site with the oldest known known advanced metallurgy, like specifically with gold. Okay, and I'm going to compare this site to some other sites in the area around the same time, as well as gold like from other major civilizations across the world, including South America and Mexico. We're just going to dig into this site because I thought it was super interesting and I never heard of it before.
Dave,
So
I think it's for us to understand
Yes.
better what you're going to say. Can you explain to us where gold can be found? Because it implies that they mined it and then worked it. So could you talk about that?
Well, apparently on mummified Russell Brands.
No, I can't because I can grok it really quick. Yeah.
No, well, my question is, does it have to be mined? Only exists beneath the ground? Can we find it at the surface? Or
Yeah, no, I mean, in the American gold rush, they were finding it, in rivers and stuff like that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be mined. We'll get to that because the answer is they don't know how these guys necessarily got gold.
They don't know.
Right?
There's
But
no
there's
creek,
no
no mine. They don't know of anything.
There's no proof that they mined it. There's no proof that they gathered it. And there's speculation on that, and I'll get to that.
I'm really glad we learned about Nibiru. Otherwise, I'd have thought it was the Anunnaki mining the gold.
Yeah, I mean that was before, right? So maybe they were finding leftover Anunnaki gold, right? So where's Varna, Bulgaria, right? You can see it. It's basically on the coast of the Black Sea there. Okay, if you can see that. There's lots of riverways in the area. To answer Ricardo's question a little bit more in depth, but there's lots of riverways that had to have been used for trade and stuff like that. And so that's possibly where they found it, but the most likely speculation is that they just got it through trade with other cultures. If you look at the picture on the left, I mean, we're really close to a lot of major civilizations, right? Really close to the Black Sea, really close to the Aegean, really close to the Mediterranean, right? It's a perfect site for trading and not just trading metal, but trading customs and traditions and knowledge and things like that. So again, I'm not going to get into all this stuff. I highlight in red the important points, but it's just 4 kilometers from the city center, and it lies within a modern urbanized industrial landscape. So like I mentioned, this is where, it's my belief that there are very important archaeological sites under virtually every major city in the world, right? That we just don't know that they're there. And we maybe never will, because we build on top of, build on top of, build on top of. And that's what we've been doing a long time. But occasionally we get lucky, right? And this one was unexpectedly uncovered on the site while working on a construction project by a dude named Rachel Marinov. Obviously this sparks archaeological interest. This is in the 70s, so probably make a few phone calls and take a few weeks to get everyone in. Nowadays, they'd find it and then it would spread like wildfire on the internet, and a bunch of people would be speculating and stuff like that. So it's kind of the good old days, because there wasn't a lot of room for speculation. The experts could get in there early. And I highlighted this excavations between 1972 and 1991, and uncovering nearly 300 graves and numerous artifacts. What do we know about like recent developments with Göbekli Tepe? They stopped excavating, right? They didn't finish excavating the whole site for some reason, right? And they haven't finished excavating this, and they stopped in 1991. So just want to throw that out there. Do with that as you may. It provides key insights into the Copper Age or the Chalcolithic. I didn't know that the Copper Age was called the Chalcolithic as well, but it is. and 30% of it remains unexcavated. Like, why do you guys suppose like they would stop excavating a site? Like, there's probably a bunch of reasons, but just throw some out there for me.
You mentioned NACPRA, so bones probably.
Money.
Yeah. Desecration stuff. Yeah, money. Like, you mean like enough money to actually keep doing it?
Well, sure. I mean, the money can
What
control
else?
what's excavated. Meaning, if the whoever's controlling the money controls what's happening. So I need money to excavate, whether it's coming to me through forms of grants or through forms of private donations. Somebody's controlling that money. So if whoever controls the money has an interest in any of the narratives, then yeah, money can stop a dig, I think.
Yeah, but
Literally, whatever they're
Yeah.
finding could actually stop the dig.
Yes, so I'm glad you guys are saying this. I knew you guys were the right people to ask this question to, because yeah, you could save money, and most people would think, yeah, they funding, right? But like, maybe they find some shit that busts open the narrative a little bit, right? And they're like, whoa,
Stop it.
whoa, we can't
Stop
show
the train.
this. Full stop. Right? And then there's another concept that Michael Collins of Wandering Wolf talks about a lot, called heritage tourism. And I think heritage tourism likely plays a role here too.
yeah, but
that was great
strange.
work Mike did. I saw that as well. Yeah, I completely agree with you, dude.
But since their motivations are financial, especially as in Göbekli Tepe, or seems like it, if they excavated the rest, they could create more centers, more interest, more people, more money, right? So it's a multiple factor thing. It's just not one factor.
That's why you think narrative for sure at Göbekli Tepe,
Yeah,
I think.
It's because like here it's 30% unexcavated. In Göbekli Tepe, it's from 70 to 90% unexcavated, right? And the sites that are not excavated are known to be much larger than those that we know. So I find it interesting.
Well, look what all the guys
Yeah,
we
it is
watch have
interesting.
done with one pillar from Göbekli Tepe, right? Pillar 43, I think it is. From one pillar, we've got a map that correlates so much information about a destruction, that happened for real. So naturally, if anybody's worried about a narrative, they see what has happened with one pillar, the picture of one pillar. Sure, they don't want to uncover more of that, man.
Well, if you are an archaeologist, you would want to unravel that and see what's the rest of the story. Let's see
Well,
what
if
the
you're
whole
an honest, curious
narrative.
individual interested in our past, right? But nobody can be blamed for any larger interests at play that simply do not want a certain narrative put out there, no matter how much damn money it costs, because they want to be the only ones that know and the only ones that are getting ready for some sort of catastrophe in our future, right? So yeah, narrative for sure at Göbekli Tepe. That's just my personal leaning. Sorry, Dave. Keep going, mate.
You're good. I think there might be an element of narrative here, right? I'm not even sure if the practice of heritage tourism and stopping at 90% or 80%, like, it seems like that's more of a modern thing to do. And in the past, I believe they were a little more honest about it, as far as like from an academic perspective. But that doesn't mean that they got somewhere and then, had to call in somebody, and then that person comes in and then calls in, the powers that be, whoever they are, right? And then they're like, hey, we got some shit here that changes everything, right? I'm not saying that that's what happened at the Varna culture, but I just believe that that's any site that could teach us about our past could be subject to that.
Well, we all know it
It's definitely more
intrinsically.
a
That's why
modern
we believe
concept.
Kincaid. That Kincaid story, be it true or not, the Grand Canyon, right? Why do we all just naturally sort of inherently believe that story, at least from what I see, right? Because we all know this, what you're saying. Yeah.
The whole tourism aspect,
on
though, is a new approach.
Yeah.
When I finish school, I'll have a minor in basically managing managing anthropological and archaeological finds and how to present them to the public in a way that is digestible and also sustainable.
Right
So,
on.
yeah.
There you go.
So whatever that means, you can make that mean whatever you'd like it to mean.
Well,
Yeah.
hopefully you'll make it mean
And
something that
so
benefits all
I
of us.
just wanted to get into.
Well, you know I'm a black
Yes,
sheep.
that's the goal. That's the idea. That's where Jacqueline's the
I'm the
mole
mole.
in the system.
Hmm.
But just a little cultural context. We don't really know a whole lot about these people. They were a flourishing culture known for early metal working and interesting burial practices that we'll get into. I don't know how to say this. Does anyone else want to give it a try? But contemporary with the Galmanita culture, sharing similar technological and social advancements in the region. I have a little slide about those guys. They had sophisticated copper and gold metallurgy, producing some of the earliest processed gold artifacts in history, if not the oldest in known history.
But Dave,
And so they also had
did they
yes.
find just the gold, or did they find where they processed the gold? Because you told they don't know about mines.
No, they just
So
found the
so this
artifact.
expression is from their part is wrong.
What are you
saying that
talking
they similar technological and social advancements in terms of metallurgy. We don't know if they had any, because it could be only trade materials.
Yeah, so I got all this from sources that I'll show you at the end, but I don't know exactly how they determined whether they process it themselves or not. But they could. You're right. They could have got it from the Mediterranean somewhere. I mean, they did trade with Mediterranean people, and I'm going to get into that. So. Because there is evidence of long distance trade, including Mediterranean shells and salt exports, complex burial sites, that kind of thing. The Gamalita culture, they're known for finely decorated pottery and geometric and stylized motifs. They lived in the same area, little Romania, Bulgaria, Serbia. The only difference is they didn't have all the bling that the Varna got. So. Just taking a look at of the Chalcolithic, the Copper Age. So emergence of the Varna culture, 4600 BC, marking a shift towards advanced metalworking and social complexity. Radiocarbon dating, which you can take with a grain of salt, dates the graves at the Varna necropolis and confirms the site's age within that period. The end of the Varna necropolis use was, they say, around 4200 BC, after which the site was abandoned or evolved, which is typical. Here's some of the bling. Let's take a look. More than 3,000 gold items were found weighing over 6 kilos. 6 kilos of gold.
Yeah.
And there's a site. It's called Grave 43. I don't know if you want to relate that to Pillar 43 if you want, but the dude had a unique gold penis sheath, which I thought was interesting and not surprising.
Sounds painful.
Well, I just think they just slid it on there at the end after he died, and just to show everyone he was balling.
Literally.
Oh, like gold member.
Gold member.
Yeah.
Well, it ties to
Right.
Gilgamesh, right? Because if you're talking about the pillar and then the penis sheath, my mind goes to the Epic of Gilgamesh. Graham recently put out that interpretation about stuff he'd found in the Middle East, right? Being the story of Gilgamesh and the guys there holding his penis, because in that story, God or whoever is telling Gilgamesh that your penis, which you find so much delight in, will soon be food for the worms. So turn your heart to more everlasting things.
Right.
That's beautiful.
That is.
And some of the text.
So
go ahead, Dave. My bad.
You go.
I was just going to say, in some of the texts with Gilgamesh and Enkidu, they had a sexual relationship. Some people believe that. So they were more. It was just together a lot.
So during that little interlude for me, I did look up Ricardo's question. And there are local deposits of gold in the Balkan rivers with high purity of 23.5 to 24 carats,
Wow.
which is what we're dealing with in these artifacts. So it suggests just simple panning and hammering. As well as
Gold
we
shaping.
mentioned,
So you
possible
mean it's
trade
gold
with
shaping, right?
possible trade with gold-rich people from Romania or Thrace, and just rudimentary gathering from local veins. No evidence of advanced mining. So there you go. All right, you can see the penis sheath there. So let's just all look at this dude's penis sheath for a second.
God.
No
Top
podcast
left.
is complete without one of those. So.
Mummified Russell Brand had a
Right,
penis
correct.
sheath. Oh my God, that's absolutely fucking spot on, isn't it?
Yep, they sure did. And you know what? I think I wouldn't be surprised if he mummified himself anyway when he's gone, and he does have a
Right.
penis sheath.
I hope he
Keep that
does.
shit from
Wouldn't
happening
surprise me at
again,
all.
wouldn't
Yeah, yeah. So he was approximately 40 to 45. I tried to find like evidence of like a violent death, like in a battle or anything. I didn't find one. Nothing obvious, but everyone back then had broken this and fractured that. He was relatively tall for that time, but not super tall. There was also bull-shaped gold platelets symbolizing power and religious authority, supposedly. The interesting thing about Varna is it reveals a clear social hierarchy. Like this picture here, and I couldn't find a whole lot of pictures, so it might be some version of European Nagpra, but some people were literally buried with animals and stuff just strewn about. Some people were buried separately with no stuff. Some people were buried like homeboy there with the gold penis. And so it shows clear social hierarchy with diverse burials. Just a little about the Copper Age. It's roughly 5,000 to 3,000 BC in Europe and Near East, varying by region. Transitional between the Neolithic and Bronze Age, marked by use of copper tools alongside stone implements. Early metallurgy, and I think that's what Ricardo's getting at, is it's not like these guys were like, smelting and doing all kinds of stuff, but it is metallurgy, right? And so it wasn't, what you'd think of metallurgy, in the, 1700s or something like that, right? But they were working this metal and creating cool things out of it. So I just quick comparison to local sites in the area around the same time as far as like what they had available. There's a site in Spain called Los Malares, 3200 to 2200 BC, so a little over 1,000 years after Varna. And it's associated with the beaker culture, when those guys spread copper and bronze technology all across Europe. The site in Spain had pottery, copper tools, beaker pottery, showing trade and cultural exchange, but no metal like that.
No gold. Is that it?
Sorry, yeah, no gold. Yeah, correct. This is a timeline. I think this might be out of order, but that's okay. And I can't seem to get rid of these pro tip things, pissing me off. But I don't know if you guys can see that, but here we go.
Yeah, we can see that.
All right. It's okay. Varna timeline compared to Mesopotamia and other ancient sites like Egypt. Varna had active skilled metallurgy and rich burials from 4600 BC compared to Mesopotamia, 3500 BC. That's when they had the rise of urban centers. 3100 BC is the unification of Egypt. So just to show you, cuneiform tablets in Sumer, 3000 BC, construction of the step pyramid by Joseph, 2600 BC. So Varna was doing this, complex social hierarchy and metallurgy, early metallurgy, thousands of years before these sites, if we're going by the mainstream.
That's so
narrative,
wow.
Ricardo. I think so.
Yeah.
So similarly, that was out of order, but in Copper Age Turkey, 770. So in Anatolia, in the date 7500 to 5700 BC, so a little bit older than Varna. They had copper tools, polychrome wall paintings, and mud brick houses. They had large organized settlements with intricate wall paintings and that kind of thing. So it's not unheard of to have like social hierarchies and stuff like that before that. But there wasn't a whole lot of burials that like were like, all right, this dude is important and this lady's important and these ones aren't, that kind of thing. So keep going. So this is just comparing gold work in the timelines of Varna versus Sumerian, early Egypt, the Old Kingdom Egypt, Minoan, Crete, and Celtic gold, and Mycenaean Greece. Okay, I'm not going to like read this whole thing off, but you can see for yourself that there was a bunch of cultures in that area doing work with gold, but not as early as Varna, as far as we know. And I'm gonna let's see if I can, yeah. So this is just switching some screen shares here. This is Sumerian stuff, and just we're gonna compare what we see to Varna. This is Old Kingdom.
Could you
Egypt.
go back one?
Yeah,
is
sure.
The sixth one on the top, counting from the left, Sumerian?
Looks like Viracocha.
Maybe not. I mean, just a quick Google search.
Okay.
Notice
I
I just typed in Google Sumerian gold work, so it might not all be. Just showing you a quick comparison. Old Egypt here. Mycenaean gold work.
The famous face plate.
Yep. The Mochi culture. Or however you even say that. And this one is interesting, the Tumacu La Tolita gold work. And I have to go back to my grok to tell you guys about them, because I just learned about them this morning after I put together this presentation. But like, what do you notice about some of this gold work from, so let me go back.
It's funny you bring up gold, and I'll say this.
From this one.
Because
this is, sorry, real quick, Tyrone. This is the Tumaco La Tolita. And then, yeah, please talk while I find what I was looking for.
Okay, so I was reading this. I think it's from Robert Alter, if I'm not mistaken. He translates the Hebrew text. And in this book, and I'll have to go and look for it. I'll look for it after this. But in the book, he says the number 666 first comes up when it's representation for gold.
666 matches Tiferet on the Kabbalistic trio life, which gold is associated with that sphere as well.
I was going to say, Nick, what do you have to say about that?
See the correlations right there, and I want to say it was Robert Alter, but yeah, he has a book series that he has translated the Hebrew text. You know, on the bottom of it in the sections, it literally says 666 is the first representation of gold in the Bible.
Any explanation for that affirmation?
Do what?
Does he present any explanation why he says it?
Yeah,
I'll have to go back and look at it. I have to grab the book. And it's on
well,
one
it
of those
makes sense. Since the topic
texts.
I brought up, it makes sense in an intrinsic level. I think if you look at Revelation, why they throw in 666, right? The mark of the beast. Well, what's wrong with this place as a whole right now? It's embracing of material culture, right? Gold is the
Mhm.
Yeah, it's
ultimate
materialism.
sign of material culture. So I think that rings a bit of truth, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do too. And we're just showing little comparisons, but these Tuma La Tolita goldwork stuff is pretty old, and it's pretty good. Looks
Yeah,
it's
very
pretty
fine
interesting
work
stuff.
on those ramifications there. Second column at the end.
Yeah,
Some of them got elongated heads.
totally agree. There we
Right.
go. I was wondering if anybody would notice that.
Some alien faces
Um,
and so on.
A lot of familiar with a lot of
But-
South American. Just I see influences on a lot of these pieces, or not influences, but you know what I mean. It echoes
So-
it.
Well, I'm glad you said that because that's where I was going with
No, no,
this.
please.
Is that this is the earliest known gold work in South
Mm.
America, and it's from these guys were from the Colombia area. So yeah, I find that Colombia and Ecuador, and it's I just find that interesting. So approximately 3,600 to 4,000 years. So these are old for South America, by the way. You guys will find that South America's gold work is like way newer. And that falls in line with Younger Dryas hypothesis. And
So this
things
stuff
like
I'm
that.
looking at, it's not same
Um,
timeline as the Varna culture.
No, it's not even. It's literally in South
Right,
America.
I knew that. I
So
didn't
just-
catch the date of this stuff, I guess, as compared to the Varna. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's much older, and we'll get.
Got
It's
it.
much newer. I mean, and we'll get.
Okay,
we'll
thank
get
you.
to that.
The question the question I'll
yeah,
make is
and-
you can make anything with this material, right? Why do this that we are seeing? I think that's the question. Why create these shapes, these images? From all the things they could do, why these shapes? And why do we see repeated the same kind of motifs everywhere?
Yeah. I just think it's likely because there was a global civilization at one time that was connecting
Yeah,
all this
ditto.
shit.
Diffusion.
And it's hard to say whether these people were interconnected at the time that they made this stuff, but they were likely interconnected by myths and stories and stuff like that. And
At some point, right? And if we're all talking about a diffuse culture, I mean, wherever, put it in the Atlantic, or it doesn't matter, anywhere on Earth, after it's destroyed, folks would fan out in whatever direction they fucking could, right?
The Celts were making gold stuff in 500 BC, which I thought was interesting. But these Varna guys were doing it much older. And I'm open to the possibility, as Ricardo mentioned, that they may have found some of this stuff, right? If there's no evidence of like anything besides just pounding and shaping and whatnot.
Like the
So-
Egyptian vases, sort of.
Yeah. And so I'm just a look at what we're going to take a look at their trade network. So they were in like having pretty advanced trade networks with areas in the Black Sea, the Mediterranean, the Aegean. And this on the right here, this is based off of carrots and similar sites. I mentioned Las Malaris earlier. We're going to take a look at Tel Hamukar and however you say that one, Kalhoyuk in Turkey here in a second. But similar sites were doing stuff with metal, but not nearly as well. And again, this is just a visual representation of how much further Varna was ahead and how much further they were back in time than some of these similar sites in the area. And they also traded rock salt with spondylus shells with civilizations in the Mediterranean. So you'll see that, and they found a lot of evidence like that at the necropolis, which is cool. So this is it. This is interesting to me. Unique aspects of Varna is the site provides early clear evidence of social classes in prehistoric Europe, marked by distinct grave goods indicating status differences. One dude was buried with over 1.5 kilograms of gold, including a scepter and the penis thing. And women were generally buried in like the fetal position. I think that's on my next slide, but that's interesting to me. I mean, what do you guys think that shows?
It could be interpreted in lots of ways, actually. Yeah.
Well, the fetal position, at least, when we take it, is often in the forms of being held, being cuddled, or being protected,
Well,
perhaps.
women, the fetal position is quite literally the position of a fetus.
Right.
As you are born, as you.
That's right.
Right.
And women are the vessel of that delivery.
Yeah, for sure. And one interesting thing, the last thing I'll touch on this slide is that the gold artifacts from Varna outnumbered and outweighed those from contemporary sites in Mesopotamia and Egypt. So they had more gold artifacts from 4600 BC than Mesopotamia and Egypt did, which is weird, right?
Regarding the last point, I would say, how did they knew what the fetal position was? Is it because it's a small space and the baby has to be curled? Or did they actually knew how the fetal position was?
Maybe they didn't even call it
Sure,
the fetal
no,
position
they didn't for sure.
at all.
That's
It had
our
nothing to do with
interpretation.
that.
But I mean the position in itself.
Well, let's be honest. We've seen plenty of examples from the Phoenicians or whatever of infant slaughter, to bless the sailing or the expedition. So, I mean, if you're cutting them out, you know what position they're in, just to be brutal for a minute.
Yeah, it's true. So the Varna culture settlements possess salt artifacts linked to, can't pronounce that, but that's inland of, so they had inland trade routes, as well as spondylus shells sourced from the Mediterranean were found in graves and settlements. Those typically symbolize luxury and social status in the Mediterranean, and I think the Varna did that too, based on how and who got buried with them. But it confirms long-distance trade routes connecting Varna with the Mediterranean cultures, which I think is interesting. And so when we look at this, Varna is up here on the top right, where it says Bulgaria, right next to the Black Sea. So in order to trade with the Mediterranean in areas in the Aegean Sea, you would need probably advanced river travel and all kinds of things. And then the spondylus shells are found all over the southern coast of the Mediterranean. And so my point is they would have, it was a advanced trade network. They were getting these shells from very far away and getting salt from very far inland. And I think that's cool. Because you think about in 4600 BC, what you would have to do, the logistics involved, the danger, and all that stuff to make these trades. Just interesting to me. So, and like I said, the spondylus shell exchange included maritime paths along the Mediterranean coast and river corridors linking the Black Sea with Central Europe. So they were doing some trading. This is my South American slide. As you can see, South America is was slower to develop gold, even though they had a shitload there. And if we were to speculate, what would we say the reason for that
History is telling this a lie.
And that lie is
that they were using gold much sooner. It's a matter of dating just.
Yeah, so what they're doing is they're connecting the gold that they find with these cultures, right? So
but gold lasts forever.
And as
gold lasts forever, so could be much older.
Yes, correct. So what we can then infer, right, is that it's possible that the gold that these cultures, they found with these cultures, maybe wasn't necessarily belonging to them. They found it, right? Or maybe these cultures are older than we thought. Now, I like to subscribe to the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis or solar outburst or whatever. There was a catastrophe around 10,500 BC that wiped out that whatever culture that was, whether it was Atlantis or whatever you want to call it, right? But it makes sense to me that looking at this and then looking at the other timelines, that they would be slower to discover some of this stuff and start working with it in an advanced way, because the evidence suggests that the major impact or airburst happened over North America, which means, you know, anything close to there got a later start. That's why Middle East and Africa seemed to be so far advanced, so much further back, right? And it's because of just the in my opinion, because of the location of the, you know, the catastrophe, right?
I think it could have
And
also
so,
been that they were set up differently. You know, that's just, I wanted to chime in my opinion. I think you're right. You know, the diffusion would have happened differently. But I think there's a possibility when we look at native cultures, especially the mound builders, but native in general, we see a much more, a simpler sky watching agricultural lifestyle, a different expression than we see happened over in the West. You know, so I think that's a possibility as well.
yeah, it is. And it could be both, right?
Exactly. As is always the case in much of this, it could be both, and that's why it's so fun, man.
Well, we speculate, right? Like, you know, it's hard to know what happened, you know, 100 years ago versus 4,000. So most of the time we're just speculating.
Yep.
And so, Ricardo, sorry.
Haven't said anything. No, I haven't.
We're gonna say something. Oh, I thought you were going to say something. Yeah. So just a little bit more about the trade
Ricardo's
route.
interrupting, man. So, you know, it's just either live up to your name or mute it. No.
Yeah, but
I can't actually see you guys while I'm doing this either, so it's all good. So this just explaining, that's AI on the right, don't worry about that. But this just explaining more about the trade route. Here's where we're talking about the female burial practices, buried in fetal positions. The interpretation is contrasting with male burials reflecting gender role and possibly different social statuses or beliefs about life after life and death. And we can imply our own lens to that. But I like how you guys didn't immediately imply a modern lens to that, because it could be interpreted in a lot of different ways, like Jacqueline said, right? So some graves had clay masks and contained no bodies, suggesting complex ritual practices. What do you guys think that means?
Well, the body could be used for some other ritual practice. So in lieu of a body, or if somebody was lost in at sea or in a battle or some such thing. Yeah. Then, you know.
Yeah.
We do that now.
That's true.
We will bury an empty coffin.
Soldier at Arlington, you know.
We bury empty coffins all the time.
Well, in Iberia, one of the most disturbing archaeological finds is we have hundreds and hundreds of shadow-like graves that are too small for humans. They are sculpted as some of the rock art where you see a triangular shape of the body with a circle pretending to be the head. So, and they carved it on the bedrock. So there's no lid. And then when they were excavating from Roman and past the Roman layer and starting to go to the bedrock, they found the bedrock with hundreds of these kinds of graves concentrated that you can't even walk in there because it's a minefield of holes. And they can't understand what they're for. They keep saying that, we find bones from the 17th century in some of them.
Sounds like a memorial to a lot of deaths, you know,
yeah,
a catastrophic event of some sort, huh?
but it's the shape of how they configure it. So like this very long triangle that is round at the
Right.
narrower point, and with a circular for the head, supposedly, right?
Well, if you're saying it's echoing the cave representations, right, then we could see that as a carved effigy of human beings, so that would indicate a large amount of deaths where there were no bodies left.
Yeah, but you can't walk there, and you can put even if you put the bones there, it would be crowded because some of them are really too small for even in a fetal position. You need a very small child to fit in that, and because it's conical, there is no place for the feet then. So and you can't twist the body or anything. So I'm just pointing this because of he's pointing of the grave.
Yeah, it echoes. Sure.
Sure, and you can't walk in there. You can go from hole to hole in the ground, from carved rock to carved rock, because they are all connected with one another. So and now you have an entire village built on top of it. But when they start digging and past the Roman, they found this, and no one knows what they're for. The archaeologists say they know that it's for bone depositation, but no bones were found in them unless from around the 18th century. Some monks have found it when they're digging and probably put some bones into it and put dirt on top of it again. So it's intriguing.
Yeah, that is intriguing. I want to look into this more. Yeah, please. Yeah, so this is, again, I think we do this a lot in archaeology, but we put our own lens onto things, and we tend to say that everything's about religion and spirituality, and sometimes it is, I'm sure. But for whatever, the blacksmiths were held in super high regard in the Varna culture as well.
That makes sense.
It does. And it got me thinking about what Tyrone was saying about the women being taught metallurgy. Was it Mesopotamia or
Sumer?
Yeah. According to the
way.
Mesopotamians, metallurgy was given to the woman, just like in the Bible, how Eve ate the forbidden fruit. They gave them the tree of knowledge, So, and the relationship between tree of knowledge is, metallurgy can be used for good for agricultural needs, but it can also be used for evil, which is, the destruction of the earth.
Yeah, and in Tales of Africa, you'll find, and I learned this recently, that they only allowed the women to mine, not the men. It was the women that did the mining, and they could only use copper tools. This is on their oral traditions. Why? It's a mystery, but also the women again.
Yeah. So we're getting close to the end of my stuff here. But they have a museum at the Varna necropolis. And it has limited maintenance. It has maintenance issues. It's only supported by the Varna municipality and EU funding. And I don't think the European Union has a whole lot of money or time to be spent on this kind of stuff at this particular time. But it says, this is interesting to me. Preservation efforts ensure the site's legacy continues to educate future generations. Is that not what they said about Göbekli Tepe?
Yep.
And preservation efforts, like, what does that mean to you guys? Preservation efforts.
Well, it can mean taking the artifacts and protecting them in a controlled environment. It can mean putting dirt on top of it and hiding it with the excuse of conservation. And it can and it can be a creative project that relates some money to the site itself, so they can continue with the exploration without needing extra funding.
And
they do leave it wide open for interpretation, don't they? They just say preservation efforts. Damn.
And that's the point I was trying to make. Is usually this stuff is open to interpretation, and the interpretation is open so that, like, the narrative can be controlled typically, and it's usually like lawyer type people write this in a way that, like, you know, you're not lying, but you're being you know, you're just not being honest either. You know,
Lacking
and so
transparency.
yeah, and so it could be preservation efforts ensure the site's legacy continues to educate future generations. Could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. I think most of the time at sites like these, it's a good thing. But as Ricardo mentioned, it can be like it could mean a bunch of things, right? It could mean like, oh, we better hide this in a vault so no one sees it. Or we better stop digging now because it screws with our narrative, right?
It seems
And
to
so,
mean that more and more often these days.
Yeah, that's why.
Mm.
Yeah, that's why I
Correct.
say everybody. You know, if people find enough evidence to share their narrative, all they need is enough evidence. They can grab from here, leave out a little bit of this, and boom, yeah, that's what the texts say. But you forgot what the context meant. You forgot what it said before that. You forgot the middle of it. You forgot the ending of it. You know, and that's why for me personally, I made it a point to show, okay, this is what I have on hand right now. If you can show me better, present it, and then I can go ahead and carry forth from that. Other than that, I'm stuck with the only stuff that I have in front of me. And that's why when he was talking about, you know, what was the oldest known manufactured of gold, is I knew it started with a B, and that was the basic that I knew. I knew that all I needed to do if I needed to go do a quick reference was go to ChatGPT or go to Google and say, hey, what is the oldest gold manufacturing place in the world that we know of? It started with a B, and it will probably bring up so many different ones. And as soon as I see it with my own eyes, because I've read it, I'll be like, oh yeah, that's the one that I've read from. That's the one that I remember from. And
yeah. I want to show you guys just like a less than 2-minute video. The source is from the U.S. Money Reserve YouTube channel. So take with that what you want, but it's a
So
compact
you're showing us
short
propaganda.
video.
Okay, thanks for Dave. Go right ahead.
Yes, correct. That
We get a
so,
cut of what you're receiving for doing
yes.
this? Okay.
Yes, I do. Yes. But the reason I chose it was it's only 90 seconds and it gives us probably a little bit of propaganda as well as like a really nice look at like the exhibits and stuff like that and what they got going on there. So let me just take shortly. Plus I wanted to shout them out so that they don't demonetize this someday. So let's check that out. The scepter.
The Varna necropolis
There's a cult. Hold on. Where's the occult reference in that?
I don't know. It looked like he was smoking a really large doobie stuck on a pin like they used to do in the 70s. That's what I saw.
Is there occult references here?
Thigh stick. That's the name. Because it's tied to a stick, you know?
I'm talking about this U.S. Money Reserve symbol.
Well, Tex Mars will have a field day just with that. So,
Just throwing it out there.
The Varna necropolis is an ancient burial site located in Varna, Bulgaria. The site received mass notoriety after it was discovered in 1972. After its partial excavation, archaeologists discovered over 290 graves, many containing gold and other ancient treasures. Some of these items included sculpted masks, weapons.
So I just want to pause quick on this. Like, this is some cool shit that they were making, right? Looks like, is that a bull or a ram? Something, a bull symbolism. Just jewelry, scepters.
Looks like an ad-ladle and a boomerang there in the middle. I mean, just that's what my mind sees.
Yeah, a gold boomerang. Imagine that.
Right. Weapons of choice to take down the whatever was Roman back then. The beads too are just incredible, man. You're right. It's all
The beads.
Yeah,
these aren't folks on caves just, you know, squatting and banging some gold ore against a hot stone. I mean, you know, these folks have had some practice, man.
Is
looks
it
like it.
an eye illusion
Uh,
that there is glass between the thing that looks like a crucifix, or it's just the
Looks like it's
spacing?
Yeah, I think it's
Looks like a
just an eye
pipe, doesn't it?
illusion. Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I wonder why they
Yeah.
set it apart, since they find all the pieces.
I think this is my guess, but maybe
Wood
there
or some
was
other.
like a
Hmm.
wooden rod in between, like
Okay,
that
okay,
went through the whole thing
good
and held it
observation.
together.
Yeah.
That's what I'm guessing. But I think it's pretty badass. I like
Right?
one of those
Golden
things.
Any of those
bowl.
things.
Yeah, the necklaces are like, rappers would be
Well,
would
that's a
love that
bank
shit.
right there. Just take off a bead every time you need to purchase something, man. That's
Yeah,
what that
finally don't
is.
see.
Exactly.
Weapons,
Right.
decorations, and golden beads, pendants, necklaces, bracelets, and pectorals or armored breastplates used in combat. One specific grave, dubbed Grave 43, contained more gold than what had been found in the rest of the world at the time of the discovery. The
Crazy.
findings from the discovery denote one of the earliest instances of civilization in European history. Radiocarbon dating suggests that these graves were created around 4,569 to 4,340 BC. That makes these items over 6,000 years old. To this day, about 30% of Varna necropolis has yet to be excavated, leading many to wonder what kind of ancient mysteries are waiting to be unearthed. Call the number on your screen or click the
Buy some gold. But yeah, I just wanted to show that quick. So it gives you a good look
That's
at the
good.
sites and stuff and
Mhm.
better, clearer image. So we're getting close to the end here. You can go to this museum pretty easily. It's easily accessible to tourists. It's not that expensive to go to. It's right in the middle of the city. There's guided tours and shit like that. So, but oldest processed gold known to mankind, as far as we know, based on the the psyop narrative that we've all been taught. And so, yeah, I just thought it was cool, and I wanted to learn more about it, so I made a PowerPoint, and that's it. I did make some references, so YouTube doesn't demonetize me. But it's based on like that site, just for general discussion. What do you feel like that means as far as what we know about human, civilization, human trading, that kind of thing? Why do you feel like that area had so much more gold, had so much more reverence for gold, and built so much gold shit compared to Egypt and Mesopotamia at the same time, who were further ahead in things like writing and things like math and stuff like that?
Well,
Hmm.
so I was saying this before. A lot of women, or I tell a lot of people that women are the first mathematicians because they were the ones who can link up their cycles with the moon, and that was for them to tell certain days. The Ishango bone is one of the oldest bones that depicts that, and the date on that goes back, different dates, of course. But as far as I know, it's one of the oldest ways of telling, the cycles and stuff like that. So math, yeah, I always say math is,
That's wild.
yeah, it is pretty wild because I always tell people, that um, the stupid idea that women are bad in math and that they were actually the first mathematicians is something that's just weird to me, because it just doesn't make sense. So I always point that out there to let people know that women were the first mathematicians. They were the ones that were doing the counting and stuff like that. I mean, they biologically they're linked with that. I mean, a man can go in seclusion and then not know what day it is, but a woman can start her own calendar based off her own cycle. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
you see how it could happen. I mean, it seems like you're describing like early, what you call science. I mean, if you are in a village and you do know the cycles of the moon and they're important to you for some purpose, whether you understand it or not, there's clouds a lot of times. But if you notice through observation that this woman, every time her cycle comes, the moon's in this position, Yeah, naturally, then you'd have it right there ready, no matter the weather
Yeah, and
conditions.
only women would know that. You know, they know their own personal body, and they look up in the sky and be like, "Man, the moon is always moving every time this
Yeah.
happens." So yeah, I mean that's what I bring up a lot. Um, but with gold, like I said earlier, everybody believes that it's Africa that has to do with gold. But when you look at Varna, you actually see it older than anything. And I was saying it earlier, every civilization started around 3200 BC. Some people will say 3200 BC, some people say 3500 BC, some people will say 4500 BC. It goes between. I mean, if you look at the Mesoamericans, the Sumerians, or the Mesopotamians, the African civilizations, they all around 32 something hundred BC. It just depends on what you consider. That's why I say the Sumerians are considered the oldest only because of their writing system. But it takes a civilized group of individuals to make the gold artifacts that Dave just presented. So why isn't that on the criteria? And I always say it every single time to everybody. I say, what is your criteria that is needed to be considered a civilization? Because everybody's going to have a different criteria. Some are going to say writing system. Some people are going to say building of pottery. I know Samuel Noah Kramer says in his book that in one of his books, The 39 First of Sumer, he actually talks about how pottery is found there too. And Sitchin actually says that too in so many ways. But you can tell pottery is different, is made differently. And because of pottery and the potter's wheel is where we get the wheel from. We don't get wheels from, transporting anything. We get the wheel from them creating it from the potter's wheel. So, but taking mud and slapping it together is not really hard to do. It's just an advanced part would be burning it in some kind of fire pit or something like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, and with the Varna culture, they had sophisticated trade networks, which I think is a hallmark of civilization, right? I mean, it requires a whole bunch of forethought and planning and
Multiple independently
knowledge
developed
of.
community with their own resources to share. Yeah, I mean, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have to like learn to talk to these independent communities and things like that. So you have to have, and there's a lot of specialization that would go into an advanced, sophisticated
but in terms of
trade
astronomy,
network.
they are all in the same year. So it takes to all of them the same 72 years to calculate 1 degree of the sky. So there's no way that everyone got to the same conclusion at the same time, because they are all in the same year. So they all have to do the calculations, or one did the calculations and then diffusion spread it all over the world. Because I don't see a lot of communities getting 72 years of records just to document 1 degree in order for them to know the precession of the equinox and all of that stuff. Just before we finish, I just wanted to see, for you to see what I was talking about. Do you see the floor?
Yeah.
Yeah. They are very small and they are everywhere, right? They just opened that bit there. So the houses and everything was built on top because they couldn't see them. So it's a very strange, and it's more eerie when you're there because there's no footing. There's
People
no footing
live there?
at all. Yes.
Okay.
This is called Vila Moreira do Rei. It's a place up north.
Yeah, that's chilling. I mean, especially if you see them as representations of death, say they didn't actually bury anything in there, because they didn't have anything to bury, then that looks like a representation of a lot of people dying at once, explosion or whatever, mass catastrophe, where that's what I see.
It's
Yeah, you're right,
another
man. It's
angle.
chilling.
You see, the point is,
that's wild.
it's very
Wow.
strange.
It is strange.
So,
That's
Dave,
weird.
I'll just say quickly, I guess my comment and question. First of all, thank you very much, man, again, for educating me on something I had no doubt about. And what I see, first of all, are the dates that you shared, right? So not only when I see the pictures of all this stuff, but I see that date that has got most of the popular, according to the main narrative, the popular locations for civilization to emerge, whatever that meant, is later, right, than this. The second thing, I guess, that jumped to me was its location. So we're looking near Göbekli Tepe territory, right? Looking at a map, if I'm correct. It's Turkey, right? That general region of the world. So what I see is if we do not see the signs of metallurgy and all that, and we see this reverence for gold, we also see its geolocation being very close to what we now see is the oldest expression of anything from man, at least as far as we can tell, right? So why are these two things then echoing in that exact same region, right? And with Göbekli Tepe echoing so much knowledge, you hit at the precession, right? All this knowledge of what the stars looked like then and what they would look like way down the line. So they left this map that all echoes to somebody surviving, what's my word? Survivors from this cataclysm, right? Coming and planting somewhere. That's what I take from it, is it seems to push the timeline, and it also geographically echoes other findings that push the timeline and sort of leave the same questions. Where did this gold working arise from? Where did this stone working arise from? That's what I see. And bravo, dude. And thanks for that, man, for educating me.
Absolutely.
You're welcome. And I'm just educating myself, so I just enjoy sharing. And Ricardo pointed that out like right at the beginning. Ruined the surprise, but the surprise really was that like we don't know we don't know shit, like and knowing that we know nothing is was that Socrates is like important when we're looking at stuff like this, right? And we're considering these dates, and we're considering like what this means, because this is just one dude doing some construction. Probably there's a bunch of dudes, but the guy who like was the head of the construction team is the guy who gets the name. But like, finding this, right? And like I said right at the very beginning, is that under our feet is like all the answers, right? And we're gonna, who knows what's going to change the timeline in what ways, by accident, like that, right? And so the reason why I think that we don't hear about that site very often is because it does challenge the narrative a little bit, doesn't it? It and then Tyrone, is the way Tyrone pointed out, is what is a civilization, right? There's entire academic mobs that like are built upon like the idea of civilization starting in Mesopotamia, and there's a shitload of money and institutional control over that idea.
A lot of inertia behind that idea,
but
be it wrong or right.
Yes, but what is a civilization, right? Like if you have advanced, trade networks and spiritual beliefs and doing all this crazy shit with gold way before they were doing it in Mesopotamia and stuff, would that not be a civilization?
I think an advanced civilization is a civilization that promotes cultural peace and understanding between all. That's not technology. Technology doesn't bring you peace or understanding. In fact, it can even create dissension, because everyone has an opinion. Right?
Well, you don't hear. Oh, I'm sorry, Ricardo. Exactly.
No, go on. I finished. Otherwise, I will run for an hour. So I just finished.
No, I think it's not shared for many reasons, and I think at most you're right. It's this timeline. I mean, look, we've got a freaking mummified Russell Brand with its golden penis, sheath, right? There is some advanced teleology or thought processes going on with this group of people. Call them whatever you will, a civilization
sure,
or
but
not.
Right? They're still doing that in Africa today. They're still burying their guys with the same strap to their penises.
Right.
They're still doing that today.
Don't we also see, though, look, like you said, when I come with no narrative, like Dave started this with, right? That's to me is the position of I know nothing, right? Is I'm not going to apply a narrative. Now, I am going to, the more I learn about a certain narrative and the more it starts to appeal real to me, the more I do have to fight against, right? But still, what we're trying to achieve is no narrative, right? So I look at this. It's in the area of Göbekli Tepe. There's a dude that looks like Russell Brand with his penis in a golden sheath. What do I have at the first layer of Göbekli Tepe? I got a dude holding his penis. Okay, right there, I see links, right? I see links that I could say this culture. So even on the tip, and no pun intended here with our gold penis,
well, I would
but even on the tip,
Jesus
this
Christ.
iceberg, right? When I don't apply a narrative, if I just look at it like
Nick,
this is
titties.
shit I dug up, I see correlations, and both of these come way before. And they had a weird obsession with the penis, but they both come well before anything the established narrative tells me, right?
And Freud, if he was alive, he would be terrible.
Having a
terrible.
field day right now.
No, you would
Yeah,
think
look.
I was born in the wrong age, because back then I'll make a fortune, because these people
Yeah,
are
no.
obsessed with their
Yeah.
I
penises.
like the interpretation of the Gilgamesh, you know, that it's a reminder to us to constantly not be obsessed with the material realm, and to anybody at least that's walked around in a male body, you understand that battle, that this thing that is not connected to my everlasting wants to take my attention, you know. And so you see this permanent reminder from the Epic of Gilgamesh etched in stone and maybe gold, echoing back to what we could say is a spiritual tradition. You guys know I'm going to lean
Sure.
that way. But at least to a story,
Hmm.
you know, about a
Sure.
spiritual tradition and an actual event, the cataclysm, right? Göbekli Tepe is telling me about a time the cataclysm happened. These guys echoing advanced technology here in Varna and the same maybe beliefs type systems as this civilization. Of course, they don't want us to talk about this place. Thanks,
Sure.
Dave.
And
You
David,
know?
do you know,
Mhm.
Dave, do you know how high is that city where you found? That's where, I mean, city is the location. How high it is? It
I don't.
it,
No,
it
I
would be
don't. We can look
interesting
it up
because
quick
of
though.
this. We know that the event that destroyed all of that area, including the Mediterranean, was around from 4000 BC to
Yeah.
3200 BC, right? And so
The
no,
the
no,
volcano,
the
right?
Berkeley crater event, the create a vast tsunami that entered, crossed Egypt to the Mediterranean, and caused all over that area weeks of rain. The first weeks was boiling rain, so rain that is actually almost in vapor, so 90 degrees water raining, and
God put the
then
kettle
cold
on,
water.
huh?
Yeah, then normal rain. So this whole thing about 6 weeks of continuous rain after the tsunami, right? So it's water everywhere. Only the high places survive. So we know that Göbekli Tepe, although most people don't speak about it, has an enormous lake, not enormous compared to the America, but has a vast lake on top of the mountain right above Göbekli Tepe. And if you look at the
Mhm.
hydrography
Mhm.
of the terrain, you see that that lake overflowed and brought a lot of silt down that buried Göbekli Tepe and the whole area. It's not naturally buried, as they say. It was a massive landslide that covered the whole thing. But because we don't find bodies, it's obvious that they knew that was going to happen. And so they moved south, probably, and they could move to the place where you find this Varna, right? All of their culture of the time, right? So I'm just asking, is Varna
So
high ground so it could survive the cataclysm? That's my question.
Hmm.
It's not, right?
no, it's not. It's
Yeah,
So the
basically sea
dates are
level.
conflictuous, yeah, and there.
Yeah, yeah, they are. I did look up um, about the astronomical alignments, and there's, you know, some people have speculated that first of all, some of those circular gold items could represent celestial
Sure.
bodies, but
Mm.
it's just speculation. And then most of the graves are aligned east to west, which could suggest some rudimentary
Where the
knowledge
sun sets
of
and rises.
you know, astronomy. Yep, correct. Yeah. And so they probably were thinking about that kind of stuff, but there's no like clear, it's not like napta, they don't have any napta stuff going on there or whatever, but still
Mm.
pretty
And it's
interesting.
funny you mentioned Naphtha Play. A lot of people don't know about that place. That's like another old calendar place.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Yep.
It's the oldest calendar
Well,
place,
it
isn't
depends
it?
because some people consider the Inky calendar / Adams calendar in South Africa to be older.
Yeah, the Adams calendar is probably older than the other one.
What's the name of the thing we're talking about now? Sorry, I just heard you reference it as the oldest.
Napta
So they had Naphtha Play is supposed to be one of the oldest calendars, but there's arguments that there's one in South Africa called Inky / Adams calendar that's older. Some people say it was like cow
So I'll
pastures or
show you.
something like that, but it was others say
Yeah.
that it lines up with
But it's in the area with about 1 million top or more circular structures in the same area.
That's
Yeah,
Napta
that's
there,
Naphtha
just
Play.
FYI.
Yep.
Mm.
And it's a literal calendar and solar and
yeah, these multiple
everything.
alignments. Yeah, I've seen several papers on it. It's very well studied.
Older than Stonehenge, supposedly.
Yeah.
All right, guys. As much as I'd love to keep going,
Oh, the dog.
The alarm is sounding. The alarm is
the
sounding.
dog thinks someone's here, and it's probably the
Solomon.
bus coming. So, well, that one's Falcor. I have 2 German shepherds.
Oh,
Mm,
nice.
yeah.
Falcor. I love it.
Yeah, that's Falcor.
Falcor,
Never-ending
Falcor, that's
story
hilarious.
reference is now in
Yeah.
place,
Mhm.
right? So we can officially wrap.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
we
Those-
thank you all for coming. And
Thank-
presenters, thank you so much, Tyrone and David.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Yes, I enjoyed y'all's presentations.
absolutely.
Thank you so
I
much
love how
for
they
the
both kind of
education,
fit
gentlemen.
together.
That was really great.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Good conversation. We appreciate each and every one of you. Sarah, where can the people find us? You got this.
Spotify, Rumble, Spreaker, Insta, X, and YouTube.
You got it.
Wow.
Did I do
Yep.
it? I did
Yep.
it. Hell yeah.
Yes, and support
I
you.
remembered.
Check out our merch store. Link below in description. We thank everybody for hanging out with us today.
Sure. Support the project. Help the
Yes.
girls.
See you guys
Support
next
these
time.
ladies. Support
Bye.
the Institute. Adios.
Adios.
Yeah, take it easy.
Thank you, everyone. Sarah, go get your baby.
All right, y'all.
Thank you, Tyrone.
Thanks so much, guys. I learned
See
a lot.
you.
Bye-bye.
See you, Nick.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye, guys.
See you, Shaman.
Yeah.